Flight 1969, service to JetNation Radio.
Look at what a leader this guy is.
Bolt is fighting for his job this year.
This is what quarterbacks are made of.
Middleton get a 50-yard onside kick. How stupid can you possibly be making that much money?
Folks, grab a snack.
Let's go to eat a goddamn snack.
And join Joe Blewett and Glenn Naughton for JetNation Radio.
And you are listening to another edition, the 6th edition of the YouTube watchable version. Like I said, I do that just to help myself later when I'm trying to put it up. This is going to be not a positive show, Glenn, to say the least, other than some things on defense that were good about this game, but the offense was just absolutely abysmal. Maybe it's time we get a new intro, too. The Rex Ryan thing's getting a little bit old. For whatever reason, every time Chris, who's from Rockfall Report, does the intro and he says snacks, he says it weird and I always laugh, but maybe get a new one soon. So I'm done with the Rex Ryan. Like I said, a lot of things to talk about, but before we do that, Glenn, what is up, man?
Hey, Joe. Just sitting back and had an opportunity to finally go over a little bit of the film from the other day. As unpleasant as it was, it's not always a good time, but, you know, you got to do it. Looking forward to the last few weeks of the season, and hopefully we see some of these kids that we haven't seen, you know, unleash some of these guys. They're probably not going to win any of these games. They're not winning this weekend. Unless New England, you know, lines up an O lineman at quarterback week 17. No. I don't see them winning that game either. So probably no more wins left on the schedule, barring some crazy miracles. But let's get some of these kids, man. It's only 3 games, but it's something. It's a peek at some of these, you know, the young corners, young defensive guys. Can we get the ball to ArDarius Stewart beyond the line of scrimmage? That'd be a nice But I'm not totally sold on the fact that these guys are going to get a chance over the last few weeks. I think Todd Bowles is going to treat this like it's a playoff push.
Yeah, with New England, they're not going to be playing any of their young guys or anything like that. I think they're one game behind the Steelers right now, and I'm pretty sure they're going to want to lock up that game so they can get home playoff advantage. But if you want to call in over the phone, you can call in at 1-669-900-6833. It's an ask you for a pin. I'm sorry it's so long, but it is 989-311-8641. You hit pound. If you're calling in just via video, Skype, or whatever it may be, you just dial 989-311-8641. Glenn, you can find him on Twitter at AceFan23. You can find me on Twitter at JoeRB31. Glenn, we got a review this week from Fire TRK Mech. I don't know. For whatever reason, he calls you Ed too, but he says best Jets podcast on iTunes. Joe and Ed are truly Jets alchemists. No politics, no preaching, just stats, facts, and thoughtful commentary. These guys know more about football in their pinkies than Dave Damashek has in his whole body. I don't know who necessarily that is before I looked it up. If you're a Jets fan, this is mandatory listening. Bring a pencil, take notes. Thanks for all the work and research, guys. So we appreciate that. If you could leave us another one, not you, but somebody else could leave us another one, that would be great. Like I said, it helps us get out to more people. I'm not going to repeat it like I do sometimes. I don't feel like repeating it today. So we'd appreciate that. 5-star. You can find us on YouTube. Just type in Jet Nation, subscribe to that channel. And then under playlist, well, if you're subscribed, it'll actually pop up and it'll tell you every time we're going live or once it's posted. Or you can go to the playlist and it has all the former shows and stuff like that. Glenn, anything you put up on Twitter this week or any articles you want people to check out? I did my usual film review, just put up the moments about, I don't know, maybe 4 hours ago or so. So that's really the only thing I have.
I want to start off by saying I actually do enjoy Dave Damashek's work. He's not exactly an X's and O's guy. He's more of a comedian who is a Steelers fan and likes to bust balls. So I would agree that we both talk more football than Dave Damashek. But funny guy, to check him out.
You just like to cover your ass, Glenn.
No, I don't. I'm a big fan of the Adam Carolla show, former Man Show guy. And for years, Damashek was like a weekly guest. And so I became familiar with him through that. But real quick, just a couple things I touched on in the Tuesday tidbits. Have to consider the fact that if Bryce Petty is going to start this week, he is going to start this week behind this offensive line, given his injury history, or are we one or two plays away from Christian Hackenberg getting on the field, as hard as that may be to believe? Another thing was keep an eye, something we haven't talked much about because, until you get this late in the season, it's not really relevant. But if the Rams beat the Seahawks this week, that just about knocks the Seahawks out of the playoffs. And that pick that they got in the Sheldon deal that we thought might be the 59th or 60th pick, all of a sudden that pick is 10, 12 slots higher. So keep an eye on the Rams, be rooting for them this weekend. Another thing, and I thought we touch on this during the show when we talk about the review. One note, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He's got 5 catches in the last 3 games, and he hasn't scored since week 7. What's happened to him? Is this a coaching thing where? And
this is an article you did, Glenn?
Like I said, it's not a long form article. It's something I try to said before. Enough thoughts come into my head throughout the week, but this is not a few notes I throw out there, stats that I find interesting, or recaps of previous articles from the week, and those are just a few things on there. And the Jamal Adams quote, I'm surprised that didn't get more play than it did. I don't know if you even heard it. It was basically the last line in a Brian Costello, of the New York Post, an article he did where he basically, Jamal Adams kind of started to say there were some issues with certain players in practice and their preparation. He cut himself off mid-sentence and just kind of said, he threw out the generic, like, everybody, all of us. But he started saying, like, when you see in practice when some guys, and then he was just like, well, we don't always prepare well. So to me, that's a young guy calling out some of the veterans. I'm assuming I could be wrong, but, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is Mo Wilkerson. So I thought that would have gotten a little more traction. I thought people would have picked up on, this young first-round rookie calling out some other players on the team for their lack of preparation during practice, but that went by the wayside, surprisingly.
Yeah, we can get into that later too if you want. I read about it a little bit, or I saw the quote. I think that you put into an article. I just clicked on it. It's like Jamal Adams, whatever the headline was. So I clicked on it and I read it. We can talk about that later. But let's see what else, Glenn. Other than that, for my week, pray for me if you're religious that I win my 2 fantasy playoffs that I'm in. So this week, Sunday, the next Sunday, will be ridiculously stressful. Not because of the Jets game, because I want to win, $1,000 or whatever it is. And I care about that a lot. So obviously, because I'm not rich. Thank you to our sponsor, OddsShark. OddsShark is your one-stop shop for the latest betting resources, information, and odds you can trust. Get experts, sports coverage, and detailed matchup predictions straight from OddsShark supercomputer. Looking for statistics and trends on an upcoming game, OddsShark has that too. And best of all, it's free. The experts at OddsShark provide in-depth analysis for each game, packed with stats, numbers, and trends that will help you make sharp picks on game day. Before the next Jets game, head on over to oddshark.com. That's ODDSSHARK.com and start playing like a shark today. Glenn, other than that, something that just – I don't know why, but something bothered me on Twitter. I'm not going to call anybody out or say anything, but if you're coming, and I guess this is for new listeners or people who didn't follow us on Twitter, but if you're coming here and you want us to be, fanboys who hype up all these players and say only good thing about the players and don't call people out and have a distorted view of players because they're Jets and we love the Jets, you're not going to get that here. There's plenty of shows you can go to or people's Twitters that you can go to, and you can get the fanboy bull crap where they're going to hype up Jets players and tell you everything's okay. We're the type of show who's going to tell you, okay, the Jets suck. This player sucks. We need to get rid of him. And we're not one of those shows, too, who's just an uninformed show who's going to go on to, like you said, Brian Costello's Twitter and see what his opinion of the game was and adopt his opinion and make it your own. We're going to watch the film by ourselves. We're going to get our own opinions. We're going to learn from what we actually see. We're not that show. So if you want that, unfollow us. Don't listen to the show. It's not what we do. I'm tired of hearing about, oh, well, this player and that player, he's so good. And what are you talking? You're a Jets fan. You're being biased. Stop looking at the team through your green colored glasses. It frustrates me, Glenn. A lot of these people who – go ahead.
No, it happens a lot. We've talked about it previously. I know that
it bothers the hell out of me.
I think this era, with social media and the access that fans have to players that they've never had before, they think that they're really friends if they like something they say or if they retweet or if they follow them. Like, they think, oh, wow, like, this he's my boy. Like, he's, I shook his hand before the game one day on the field, and then he retweeted the nice thing I said about him. So then they get super defensive when you say, well, that guy's not very good, and it's like it's like you're talking about their best friend and you're saying something terrible about him.
Glenn, and by chance, and it's not even why I'm saying this, but I actually put up a tweet and Jamal Adams retweeted. I was just telling you before.
Yeah.
He retweeted it, and I'm not gonna a couple of tweets later, I went and tweeted about that play that he late hit Demaryius Thomas. I was like, a dumb play. Don't know why he didn't get a flag. And then a couple minutes later, I saw that he unretweeted my tweet. I'm like, okay, Demario Davis.
And that's fine. I don't blame the players for doing that, and I don't. Yeah. And I think that's the difference is that,
Well, we're not going to do that. I'm not just like with Demario Davis retweeted 3 of the things this week. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, he retweeted. I know he name searches. I'm never going to put Demario Davis's name and say, oh, well, this is a bad play. I am not going to do that. Even if the show was to grow substantially and we were to get some more recognition, I don't know how much we really get, honestly. Like we have a good amount of listeners, trust me. I don't think players listen to our show, but let's say let's say for whatever reason, if we're in a situation where they were to, Good Morning Football, like one of those shows, I'm not going to stop calling out players. We're never, ever, ever going to do that. So do not expect it. I'm not doing it. Because then we'd be a bullshit fanboy show that all the people on Twitter want to listen to because they hear good opinions. Oh, the Jets are, 5-8 or 5-9, or they're 5-11, but they're so good. The next year's Super Bowl, yeah, bro, yeah, like they're gonna win this game. Like I'm not that person. I am not. Trust me.
And I don't like. Sometimes I see people make stuff up. Like they'll make up an absurd argument.
Yeah.
And say don't at me. They'll say something like, I don't know. I saw a few the other day where they say something that nobody else is saying, and they try to present it as if they've got this very original thought that nobody else. What did I see? Somebody said, Josh McCown. This is not a career resurgence for Josh McCown. The Jets shouldn't give him a long-term deal. Don't at me. And I'm like, has anybody said they should give him I've not heard one person say Josh McCown should be given a long-term deal and come back as the starter.
Yeah.
So it's not like a hot take to make up something that nobody's saying and say and be critical of a statement that doesn't exist. But again, it's social media. People want to put themselves out there. They want to get the follower count up. It's people are going to do what they're going to do. They don't want to offend the players. They, again, some of them, I've met, spoken to, interacted with fans who think that these players are really their friends. And it's like, did he have you over Thanksgiving?
And Glenn,
birthday card? No.
Just so we can move on, and the thing that bothers me too, just to get something off my chest too, is when people have really strong opinions of things that they have no idea about. Oh, this player is good or this player is bad, and you don't watch an ounce of film or you don't research anything, and you're just saying it because you saw somebody else say it, but you have no substance to back up your opinion, or you say strong stuff. Like I said, you just don't have a strong opinion of it. You just think that you've heard it from somebody. I don't know how many times I've heard Roberts is playing really well this year. You're wrong. How many times I've heard Claiborne is a top corner, lockdown number 1. You're wrong. We can debate that all day. I know you like Shell more than I do.
He's been solid, but he's not been a lockdown guy.
I've heard that Shell is the long-term right tackle on this team. You're wrong. I know you're a little bit higher on him than I am, Glenn, but to say he's a long-term right tackle from UT this year, I have no idea what you're watching. So just educate yourselves, please. That's all I'm asking. Okay, but let's move on. Jets. I don't know if I'm in a bad mood this week just because the Jets lost and I watched it. Actually, Kyle Smith came over. We had some fun and we watched it. And this is probably the worst game to have somebody over and be like, yeah, let's watch this game together. And it was like by like the second half, we were kind of like not even like we were watching like in our like, peripherals, but you're kind of like watching, not watching.
So you were like Todd Bowles basically.
Yeah. Who said that? It was the hardest game they played. But we'll get into that a little bit, Glenn. And okay, so like we all know, the Jets lost 23-0. They got shut out on the road to a Denver team who lost 8 straight games. Absolutely embarrassing. And it's funny because on Twitter, as soon as I saw that they were wearing the white jerseys with the pickle pants, I just quoted it and said L because they do not win with that. Glenn, can you think of the last game the Jets wore the white tops and the green pants that they actually played very well? Like, I think the Browns game they won, but the last game they wore that jersey combination actually played well. Can you think of one? I tried to think about it the other day. I was like, I can't think of anything.
I honestly think it's maybe a combination of me being a grumpy old man and having ADD, but I couldn't tell you how the Jets play and what they wear at any point in history. Like, I don't – when people say what pants are they wearing this week, I'm like, I'm watching the wrong show. I want to know what the game plan is. I don't care if they're going to have clashing colors at some point.
If they're wearing green pants, white tops.
On like, what is it, like Fashion Emergency Nightmare Show? I don't.
Like TMZ or something? No,
yeah, I don't know.
I can tell you the game plan, Glenn. The game plan is if they wear white jerseys and green pants, their game plan is to lose. Because every time I would be interested if somebody listened to this can tweet me and be like, the last really good game they had in white tops, green pants, like 5 years ago.
I always find that interesting when I see, like, sometimes writers will tweet that out, like, Jets are in white pants this week. And I'm like,
yeah.
Is there anyone sitting by their Twitter like, hang on, we can't go out yet. I don't know what the Jets are wearing on Sunday. Like,
no.
Turn the game on. You'll see what they're wearing.
Yeah. Good. I think it really. I don't think it's a curse of the white pants, or the white jerseys, green pants. I think it's more of they wear those jersey combinations on the road and they're terrible on the road. For example, this year, Glenn, a terrible game versus the Bucs on the road, the terrible game versus the Browns on the road, a terrible game in Miami on the road where they choked the game away with a 17-point lead, or no, 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. Terrible game versus the Broncos on the road. So they are not the same team on the road. They come out with no energy, other than a few players. They just do not look the same. They're not as aggressive. It's just and that's like the evidence. It's like a young team. Like, it's easy to be pumped up in a game when you're at home. You have people yelling, the fans who are there. The music is they're playing is your choice and all this stuff, and you're having fun. On the road, everybody's against you, and they're all rooting for you to do bad. So this team is bad on the road. Their one win against the Browns, it was terrible. So
I actually saw earlier today, I forget who it was. Somebody on Twitter tweeted out every road game this team has won since Todd Bowles took over, and it's like, they beat the Browns twice. They beat the 49ers. Like, it's like some of the worst teams in the league. That's who they're beating on the road. And I didn't realize the list was quite as bad as it is. There have been impressive road victories for this team under Todd Bowles.
You should get that tweet up because I don't know. Maybe don't get it. I don't know. But it's like, yeah, the Browns twice, the 49ers last year, the Colts.
The Colts, that was one, but that was with
the Bills.
I think that was when Andrew Luck had broken ribs or something.
No, he played. That was like week 3. No, that was week 2.
No, you know which one it was? It was when they played Dallas with Kellen Moore or whoever that was.
Okay, yeah, but okay, let's move on, Glenn, to the actual game. But yeah, they don't. We'll get that later, but they don't have a good road record because they're terrible on the road. They do not look like the same team on the road. It's terrible. Yeah. So as we do, Glenn, we do duds when they lose, and this time they get the shit kicked out of them. So we're definitely gonna do duds, and we do studs when they win, which I don't think we're gonna do studs to kick off a segment for the rest of the year, honestly.
Nope.
So like you said before, they're playing a Saints team who just lost to the Falcons, who are still fighting for not a playoff spot for the division win. in that division. They're playing the Chargers, who are one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now, and they're playing the Patriots Week 17 in Foxborough versus the Patriots team, who's most likely going to be playing for home field advantage. So I don't see it, especially with Bryce Petty, which we'll get into obviously. But duds, Glenn, give me your number 3 dud.
Darryl Roberts gave up some big plays, and I know that I saw the play you tweeted out and I actually had the same thoughts when I watched the film. I think it was against Demarius Thomas one-on-one down the left sideline. No, it wasn't
Latimer.
It wasn't Thomas. But the coverage wasn't bad. He was there with him stride for stride. But once the receiver's eyes set on the ball and he tried to make the receiver makes the leaping catch, Roberts doesn't make a play on the ball, doesn't look back, looks back and reacts too late. But that's sort of almost Kyle Wilson-esque. Kyle Wilson early on in his career, he had a few games where you had hope for him because you'd see him. He would have tight coverage, but he wouldn't locate the ball. And Roberts he had a rough game, and that was the first play that came to mind. And when I saw you tweet it out, you basically tweeted exactly what I was thinking when I saw it.
Yeah, no, he has a good position. He's on his inside hip. They're hand jousting. He's in perfect position. But when you see the receiver looking back for what I don't know, that's 2 yards right there. Then 7.
He's stopping the route. He's turning his body to make the leap, looking back at the ball, and he just reacts too late. And it's
him and Screen do this all the time. They never look back to the ball ever. It's terrible. But yeah, no, like I didn't give mine to him just because my relative to expectations for him, they're just so low. I don't really think he's a good player. I've said it many times before, Glenn, that I think that he's just a fourth or fifth or sixth guy on a receiver core or on a cornerback core who has good players on it. I hope he's a fourth or fifth next year. He's not really seeing a lot of snaps because he's not really a good player. My number 3, Glenn, I'm going to go with Curse and Anderson. I don't think they had a good game at all after having really 2 good games together. This game having drops, not really getting open at all. And, like I said, with the drops, I'm just going to bring up a couple of plays where they're just dropping the ball. Here, just Curse. They're running dual slants on the field side. Curse is the slot. McCown hits him. He's pretty well covered. The guy makes a play on a ball, but he just drops it. Boom, drop. So we saw that from him. Like I said, one catch 4 yards after back-to-back 100-yard gains or games, whatever he had. And then what is this one, Glenn? Let me bring up another one for you. Let's see. This was the spacing concept. Or spacing concept is usually just like a snag where you see whoever this receiver I think is Curse running a snag, and then you have the curl, and then you have the flat route, which stretches out the team horizontally. So it's a horizontal stretch play. And Anderson is running the curl on the spot concept, like I said, to the boundary side. And Petty throws the ball a little bit low, but he drops it.
That's a catchable ball. Obviously. And that's something, I figured we touch on at some point. And as much heat as Petty took this week, I feel, when you see it all the time where when you're dealing with a young quarterback or an inexperienced quarterback, you expect the receivers around him to elevate their game a little bit because they realize this is a guy that doesn't have the experience that you'd like. And, he threw several catchable balls that some of them were contested, not easy catches, but where the ball hit the receiver in the hands. They had to work a little bit, but he went 2 for 8 or 2 for 9, but 3 or 4 balls that were catchable balls, and people are talking about him like he went out there and threw 11 interceptions. Yeah, and we're gonna get into Petty too because he had a couple balls that were catchable, but then I'm gonna bring up 2 plays where one is actually really good footwork where I'll show you, and then another one is just terrible footwork, and he just misses guys badly, and you can tell it's because of defeat because his foot is pointing the wrong way or his hips are too far open when he starts to throw. Just not good mechanics. But even like this throw, it's like, and he's just running a slant here, and it's a great catch, but I'm 100% sure that Anderson heard footsteps. Why else would you go up for the ball like that?
is afraid and then bobbles it. I don't know how. I think that Stewart doesn't pick that ball. So it looks like a great catch, but he should have just caught it right off the jump right there. So something I said that Anderson, and I have plenty of audio going back, and, Glenn, you can back me up on this, where I've said Anderson is really good at catching the ball over his shoulder, but when he's running like a slant or a curl or a comeback, he's not that stable as of a receiver working back to the ball or in traffic. He's just not. He has to work on it. Like, this should have been a pick. Look, I don't know how that happens. But yeah, so I've said that before. Thoughts, Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, it was a rough game for him. He did have the one great catch where the ball was thrown high, he tipped it back to himself and caught it on his way down. Yeah. So he did a good job there. But again, he had the easy drop on the, Petty's first pass when he came in to relieve McCown. And, this is one of those games where nobody played well on offense, really. Just top to bottom. You could pick any three guys on offense, and those could be your three duds. But I was just a little taken aback. And again, we'll get into Petty more later. But I watched Petty, and I thought, was it at least one of his incomplete passes, if not two, that missed badly. They were kind of the variety that missed so badly. I think there was a miscommunication. It looked like he threw an out route to Curse on his fifth or sixth pass, and Curse was starting to break to the inside, and Petty threw to the outside, so there was nobody within 8-9 yards of the ball. So I don't think, Tim Tebow doesn't miss by 8-9 yards. You know what I mean? When you miss by that much, it's I think that's usually a miscommunication, which I think you're going to get sometimes with a guy who hasn't played. So I thought Petty was he wasn't great. But again, I just keep hearing people who just are looking at the box score. He went 2 for 9. He went 2 for 9. He's not ready. He went 2 for 9. Yeah, but he went 2 for 9 with a few drops and 1 or 2 miscommunications. Like, it's not – he didn't go out there like, and look like Mark Sanchez or Geno Smith and in some of their worst performances.
Yeah, that out route to Curse, I watched it like so many times to figure out what happened, and I'll go over it later, but I actually think he did just straight up miss him because his hips are facing towards the middle of the field. His foot is pointing towards the middle of the field. He's throwing out with his back foot way too wide, and it's just awkward looking. And he misses exactly where his foot is pointing, where his hips are pointing. So,
and even if he does, even if you're right, it's a terrible throw, but mixed in with a few all right throws.
We're not gonna kill Petty after his first start after a year.
We're not, but this is what I mean. It's I can't believe how many people, literally, and it because you kind of recognize names and Twitter handles from people that are, consistently commenting, and
habitual idiots.
I tweeted this out earlier. Like, some of the same people, like same exact people, who were saying that after he needed and seen enough, he needs a fair shot. So Geno still needed a fair shot after 29 starts. And Bryce Petty, after 4 starts, they're like, well, we know what we have. We've seen him. Yeah. I'm like, well, which one is it? One guy needs 38 starts till we know, and the other guy needs 4. Like, what? And I'm not saying Bryce Petty's going to be great. No. That's the other thing. Again, this is the sort of the extremes of the world we live in right now. Whether it's sports or politics, doesn't matter. The second you show an ounce of support for someone that someone doesn't like, they automatically insist you're enshrining them in Canton. All I'm saying about Bryce Petty is he did a couple of nice things last year, and we haven't seen enough of him, so let's get a longer look. That's it. Like, maybe he'll be good.
Yeah, well, those people who do that stuff, Glenn, don't even know their own opinions. They just go with the wind. Whatever people think, they're going to do that. But yeah,
back to studs and duds.
Yeah, back to studs and duds. I don't think Petty's going to be anything. I would say there's like a 98% chance. I'm really looking to see what he's going to be over these last 3 games, because we said that we think he could be a competent backup. Let's see if he can be a competent backup.
I think he's going to be injured, to be honest, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll go over the offensive line, Glenn. Don't you worry about that. You know we're going to do it on this show, because the offensive line is just dog shit. And it's funny to say, I think that Kelvin Beachum might be the best player on this offensive line this year, which is crazy.
He is. I don't think there's any question.
Yeah, because
I think he's okay, but everyone else is so bad. I don't think it's even close. I think Kelvin Beachum is easily the best player on this team or on this offensive line right now.
Yeah, because Carpenter, and it's another thing where, like, you'll have those fans who are like, oh, my God, did you see – oh, my God, Carpenter is a Pro Bowler, and Carpenter watch 2 games of film and watch Carpenter and tell me how good he is. Watch Shell for 2 games and tell me how good he is. Watch Winters, and we'll show you. Don't worry. But Glenn, let's get to the number 2. I don't know why. Maybe I need to finish my coffee. I'm not in a good mood. I'm in aggressive mood today. Maybe we're just gonna fight with people. I'm gonna call everybody out today. Give me your number 2.
My number 2 is the guards, both of them. They're not going to be my 2 and 1. Winters and Carpenter got pushed around again. I still, we've talked extensively about how much of this is due to the center, Wesley Johnson, but because listen, I don't want to get too far, into off-season stuff right now, but you can only fix so many things in one off-season, no matter how many picks and how much money you have. The Jets need to have as many holes filled as possible. Brian Winters and James Carpenter need to turn it around next year, and they need to be the players they were last year, because you don't have the draft capital. You need premium positions this draft. This draft for Mike McCagnon has to be about quarterbacks, corners, left tackle, pass rusher, those types of things. Guards, if you want to grab one in free agency, fine, but you can't have this type of play. And I anything's possible, but I refuse to believe that however you want to rate Carpenter and Winters prior to this year, their performance last year, good to very good. I don't think you just forget how to play football one off season. Like, something's not right there. And there's been talk of Carpenter maybe going as a cap casualty. That's not even necessary. They're going to have $1 trillion in cap space. You can't go into the offseason and say, well, we're just going to go ahead and find, 4 new offensive linemen to start for us this year. Because they need to compete next year. This is a rebuild year and everyone's fine. You get away with it, but you can't have like 2 or 3 rebuild years in a row.
Yeah, no, I agree too. And I would say that, I don't know. I think Winters was average last year. I think Carpenter was very good.
And that's what I mean. And this is a play. They're both atrocious.
Oh, they're atrocious. And this is a play that I specifically put up just because I wanted to isolate them, because people say, and I agree with you, and I agree with people that some of it does have to do with Wesley Johnson. There's no doubt about that. Now, do I think it's maybe let's say, I don't know, a 15% of how bad they're playing out of 100%? Yeah, I don't think it's a big percentage of why they're playing so bad. But here, it's an inside zone, and they can't hold their blocks on linebackers. Like, they both have –
if you look at that, once they're engaged, if they hold those blocks, look at that hole.
Exactly, Glenn. It's not like they're like dancing around him or anything like this. Like he has them. They're
engaged. They've got them.
They're engaged. It's not like they're dancing around in the minute athletic play. They're hitting them right in the chest, right in the body, and they can't hold blocks on linebackers. How do you expect to hold a block on a defensive tackle? They are playing really, really, really poor this year. I specifically wanted to bring up this play just so people can't say, oh, well, it's Wesley Johnson. Well, what was Wesley Johnson supposed to do on this play to help them block? Wesley Johnson actually did his job here. But
he did get some help from Carpenter early on.
Oh yeah, it was a combo. It was a combo block. So yeah, he helps him get into position, and then he goes off the linebacker. Yeah, well, yeah. They call it a joker combo block. The center and the guard, and then they go to the front side linebacker. But regardless, yeah, he helps him get in position, but he does his job here. He handles him one-on-one after the combo block. But still, the fact that Carpenter and Winters can't hold blocks on linebackers is a terrible sign. And just with that, Glenn, I'll bring up another play. They're my number one. Well, the offensive line in general is my number one, but I'll bring up another play of just the offensive line just allowing a sack that's just like – and this is happening weekly where they're just allowing sacks on miscommunications. And I try to figure out what happened on this play. And they're zone pass blocking where like some teams will man pass block. Okay, you take this guy if he's here, you take that guy if he's here. There's zone pass blocking. What was Wesley Johnson supposed to do on this play when there's 2 guys coming into the A gap? What is he supposed to do? Now was Carpenter supposed to follow him more inside to the A gap instead of them across his face?
Carpenter's first step is outside.
Yeah, his first step is outside, so was he supposed to go inside? Or was Winter supposed to go more towards the A gap and help him? But there's no way that he can handle 2 guys. So somebody screwed up their assignment. Now, was Powell supposed to check and release?
I mean, again, we say, I try to stress it. As much fun as we have doing this, we don't know what the assignments were, but I look at that, and I think that's Brian Winters, because Carpenter and Johnson both step to the left. And then Powell comes up the middle and picks up the linebacker. And nobody – looks like Shell and Winters both go to the end. Winters, for a second, really isn't blocking anybody. So that would be my guess, just looking at, again, with us not knowing who has what responsibility, I look for the guy who's not blocking anybody. And the one that jumps out at me there is Winters. Even though Carpenter isn't doing a great job, he makes a move and he gets a hand on somebody, and again, it's far from a good block. And it's a perfect example. Is it Winters or is it Carpenter? Neither one of them looks great here. But it's just been a theme all year, and I don't know if you put this on them. I mean, is it the O-line coach? Whose fault is it when three guys, really, yeah, because Johnson wasn't great last year, but he was better than this. So you have a single season where three guys take a huge step back. Did the three guys forget how to play football from last year? Or are they doing something this year that they weren't last? Is there more zone blocking than there was last year, which isn't a strong suit for them under a different offensive coordinator? Maybe it's a scheme that doesn't suit these guys.
Oh, well, this is just asinine. And I might agree. Like, this play is hard to – pass blocking is more hard to figure out what they're exactly supposed to do because you don't know their keys and what they're exactly supposed to do. Run blocking, you can tell if it's inside zone if four guys are doing this, or you can tell if it's power if the front side is down blocking and the backside guard is pulling, or a counter. Like, you can tell with run blocking that's easier. Pass blocking is a little bit more difficult because you're not necessarily sure. And this play, it's hard to tell. But like I said, regardless, this is not supposed to happen where one guy is supposed to take two guys blitzing or trying to penetrate through the A-gaps. It's just,
and he does initially, but at least Johnson is the only one who settles on someone and makes a block. Again, the A-gap to his right, somebody gets through, but he blocks somebody, which Brian Winters didn't really do on that play. So.
And we see this multiple times where we don't really there's guys blitzing through the A gap or the B gap and nobody's picking them up. They're getting a sack within the first second and a half of the game, Glenn. And I guess so that was your number two. My number one is the offensive line. I'll go to my number two, I guess in a little bit. And this was a bad game for Brandon Shell as well, and I'm not sure exactly what this play is, but this is just an inside zone. You can tell they're all sliding, they're all taking the guy in the play side gap. Can you tell me what Shell is trying to do here? Does he trip? How is he trying to block this guy? Hold on, let me block this guy with my shoulder instead of blocking him. Getting inside leverage on him and sealing him to the backside. How is he supposed to block anybody there? And he actually. No, there is no way that in any assignment you're supposed to duck your head into somebody and block them with your shoulder, unless he was supposed to cut him off and get to the second level, which I've never seen with an inside zone. He gets hit here. He knocks into Brian Winters, knocks Brian Winters over. That makes the linebacker, free. He jumps on Powell. He doesn't jump on Powell, but he's still free. It's just a terrible play by Shell.
Right,
Shell
but
really bad in the run game.
Right, but the only thing I can see here the only possibility, because if you look at Quale, is Shell supposed to get down inside and double on somebody or try to get that linebacker before he gets to the hole? Because Quale is basically chasing the guy that hits Shell from the side. He basically T-bones him as Shell is trying to go to the inside, and then Quale just kind of reaches for the guy to grab him like that was his man. It's the only thing I can think of as to – because, no, you're not going to turn and try to block the guy with your shoulder. It looks like he's trying to pull to the inside, and Quale fans. Obviously, just based on the angle, it's not an easy block for Quale to get. But Shell isn't even trying to block. To my eye, it looks like Shell's not even trying to block that guy. Shell's trying to get somewhere else to block somebody else, and he gets hit on his way there.
But in my opinion, it's a zone play. So if anything, if it is a combo block to the backside, which is weird anyway. Shell would at least have to help Quale get leverage on this guy. There's no way that he is, Quale is the extra tackle off of Shell and
right.
His heads up on Shell. How is Quale ever supposed to get into position if the entire offensive line is slanting left, so the defensive line is going to slant right? There's no way that he just expects Quale to get this, and in no scheme is he going to be expected to get that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not saying it's a. Watching the play, I'm trying to figure out what he's doing there. As you were saying, what's he doing? And to me, it certainly doesn't look like he's blocking the guy in front of him. and I don't see why he would think that would be an effective way to do it. So it's either an atrocious block, which it may very well be, or he's trying to get to the inside. And every now and then you see that. Every now and then, and it's always a nice play. I always like when you see a pulling guard or somebody's pulling, and someone just gets to them so quickly that they get knocked out of the play from the side because they're basically not quick enough to get to where they need to be. But he did, from the angle he took, turning to the inside, and the way the rest of the line was blocking, you would think that he'd be responsible for that guy.
Oh yeah, well, like I said, if it was a power play where maybe the front side of the play was down blocking or getting to the second level and he was trying to pull and it looked like a power, yeah, I can understand that. If his first step was a step like he was going to, I forget what the step is called right now, I'm blanking out, but basically a pull step. Then yeah, I could see that. But he's stepping like he's blocking zone, where the whole entire line is blocking zone. But regardless, and that's like one of those plays where it's like, and I know that was an inside zone, where it's almost hard to tell what he's exactly trying to do because it was so bad. But this one we know what he's trying to do. He's trying to block the 4 technique right over top of him, and he ducks his head into him, is not looking at him, tries to hug him. And this is why I say, okay, well, people, oh, yeah, Shell's the lockdown right tackle. He's going to be here for years. What is he trying to do here then, Glenn? Because we know his assignment is this guy who clearly fires out and tries to block him. How are you ever going to block a guy ducking your head, he's bending over, and he's hugging him?
The first thing that jumps out to me there is that's just a dangerous technique. If you're going to drop your head like that, if somebody comes down on top and hits you with the wrong angle, that's going to be it's going to be bad news. Yeah, And we do see Brandon Shell do that from time to time. And I've said it many times. We've said I like him more than you do. And I've said a lot of times it's ugly, but the guy he's blocking, he's had some games where he's got against some really good guys and shut them out and kept the quarterback clean. But sometimes you watch him and you're like, it's so far from textbook that you wonder, as you said, is he going to be a long-term guy? I think at the very least, he's a guy that they're going to give him another year or two, and maybe he becomes a serviceable backup, or maybe he does, clean things up and become a quality starter. But, this is he's not a guy who's only got a couple starts now. He has enough playing time under his belt that you'd expect a little better than this.
Yeah, and I think he's been okay in pass blocking, but in the run game he's been terrible. Even just the technique here where he's leaning over his legs. Like you want to if you're bending and you're trying to squat into somebody, or you're trying to push into them, you kind of want to be like on a straight line. Like you want to be parallel. If you're diagonal trying to push somebody, okay, but when you're bending over at the waist like a hinge and trying to block somebody, not looking at them and hugging them in the run game, that's terrible. I've seen the hug technique in pass blocking where a guy will come into you and you're trying to hug him and grab him by the shoulders, and you better be a strong guy because you're letting him get into your chest. I've never seen the hug technique in the run game. So the guy he's blocking makes the tackle on whoever this running back is. Maybe it's Forte. I don't know what running back that is, Powell, whoever it is, but he's been really, really bad in the run game. So, and this was the offensive line. This was a current trend with them. It was him playing bad. It was, and I think Beachum was probably the best in this game too, which is just he wasn't even good this game necessarily. But Shell played terribly. Quale when he's in plays bad. Obviously Carpenter and Winters played bad. Wesley Johnson played bad. The offensive line has been just beyond a joke, Glenn. I think didn't they get like 2.9 yards per carry on the ground? 2.6. Sorry, I gave him too much credit. They gave up 4 sacks, 23 rushes for 59 yards, 2.6 yards per carry versus a defense who's been okay versus the run game. We see like plays like that from Shell where I don't even know. So they're my number one. I guess give me your number one, and I'll get into my number two. But you were talking about the offensive line, so I was going to break it up.
Yeah, my number one's Todd Bowles. Just didn't seem all that interested in competing. Didn't try to get any points late in the half, and I have no idea what Bryce Petty did to Todd Bowles, but Todd Bowles is not like that man. Went out of his way to not really give him a shot to win the job in training camp, and then when he was, forced to put him in the game because of an injury, he runs the running back into the pile 3 plays in a row for a 3-and-out late in the game, in a game where he's being shut out, instead of saying, all right, let's do some things and play to this guy's strengths. Let's roll him out a little bit. We said it several times last year when Bryce Petty did play. He made his biggest plays on the move. He did a nice job improvising and finding guys that came open when defenses couldn't cover for long enough. And they shut him down. And that's what he was 2 for 9. Of course he shut him down. He was 2 for 9 with a few drops. He could have, his receivers make a couple plays. He's 5 for 9. It's good enough to keep an offense going. It's, the point of these snaps of these plays should be to develop this guy a little bit. How about you go no huddle and let him throw the ball a little bit and maybe get in a rhythm? Like I said, roll him out, play action, do something. But instead, Todd Bowles was just like, let's call this a night and get on the plane. Go ahead and run Bilal into the pile a few times and let's go home. So it's going to be interesting. It made me thinking of what this week's game is going to bring. Remember that the Geno Smith game against Miami when he handed it off like 40 times and he threw 8 passes. Yeah. I can't help but wonder if that's what we're in store for this Sunday against the Saints. I don't know if they'll be able to pull that off, though, because I think the Saints are going to put up about 50 points. So, when you're down 36-0 in the middle of the third quarter, can you really still keep running it up the middle? I mean, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I think I have more – and I didn't put him in my duds. I think I have more of a problem with him in the end of the game, kind of giving up. Before the half, I know a lot of people, like they got mad about that, but the situation, 3rd and 12, you're at the Jets' 43-yard line. The Broncos have the ball, 1:55 on the clock, and it's running. Jets have 3 timeouts. Now, the only reason I can really think that he was either let's get into half because we're playing terribly. You don't want the Broncos to make a big play if the Jets do get the ball back, pinned at the 10-yard line. You don't want to make a couple plays and get the ball back again, or an interception or a fumble because the offense has been playing terribly. Or maybe he doesn't want you give it a timeout to the Broncos to give them time to drive. But yeah, I don't love the decision. I didn't hate that because I think they kind of like, okay, let's get into half. But yeah, end of the game where they were running the ball a lot, not really taking shots, just kind of happy, throwing a flat route on 3rd and 8, not really doing anything. So I agree with the lack of aggressiveness, even though he wasn't necessarily one of my duds, Glenn. But let's see. My number 2, I had Morris Claiborne. He had a bad game, terrible game, and some of it, wasn't necessarily his fault. You watch it initially, you're like, oh, that was his fault. Some of the plays actually weren't his fault, but there was a lot of plays. This is one of his worst games. This is why I don't think, the people who say Morris Claiborne, number 1 lockdown top 10 corner, I do not agree with that. I think he's an okay number 1 corner in the league, especially that when you kind of add in his injuries and how that takes effect on signing him, et cetera, and how good he is. I don't think he's top tier. And this play, there's, cover 4. You have Demaryius Thomas running a route into the flat, and he takes a bad angle outside, and he misses a tackle. Demaryius Thomas shooks him inside a little jump cut, and he gets the first down. So he's missing tackles. He missed another tackle on the sideline too, where Coney Ealy had to come up and tackle the guy, where he actually almost does here too. But bad game for Morris Claiborne. Any thoughts before I pull up some more plays, Glenn?
I mean, I think you're right. He's had a decent year, not great. I think some people are a little too high on him, but given what they have at the position, we may see him back next year. Hopefully, if he is back, hopefully it's the number 2, not as the number 1. But we'll see what happens there. Anytime you get a guy with an injury history like his, it's risky to go with anything more than a 1-year deal. So yeah, he's been solid, not great, but when I guess when your other corners are, Buster Screen, Darryl Roberts, and you look that much better, but in comparison. But not a bad player. Did have a rough week, but I can see him coming back next year as a number 2.
No, Glenn, I would be ignorant if I was saying that he's not even a number 1. Like, I think he's an okay to below average number 1. Number 2, he's a great number 2, definitely.
Yeah, but he's far from a shutdown guy.
But for the people who are saying a top 10 lockdown corner, you're wrong. Even this play where he's He's in the inside, so I'm not going to break this down for very long because it's kind of far to see. This is like the best angle on it. You couldn't get another one from the broadcast, but he's an inside slot right here, and he has inside leverage on Demaryius Thomas, which he starts off with inside leverage. Has inside leverage, and Demaryius Thomas, that's a perfect position for a guy who's running an inside breaking route. Inside leverage, obviously, it makes him harder to do that. And for whatever reason, when Demaryius Thomas, he kind of hesitates a little bit at the top of the route where he breaks, and Claiborne just grabs him. Like, he stops with him, is all over him. So he had a holding call right there. That was just weird. He does grab a little bit. And then this play too, where I'm sure everybody knows about the touchdown that he was beat for. And, on this play, Demaryius Thomas actually, he gets outside. He makes him hesitate a little bit at the line. He gives him a little shake, gets outside leverage, which he wants on the 9 route. And he's in good position again. He's on the inside. He's grabby there, which I think there was was there a flag? Yeah, he pulls a flag out. I think he did, right? I think there was a flag. There might have not been, but regardless, he's a little bit grabby here. Looks back to the ball, and he's in position where he could just play the ball right here. But instead, for whatever reason, keeps trying to play Demaryius Thomas, and the ball is right there.
Yeah.
And he's not even looking at it. So if you're looking back here and you see the ball coming on that angle, maybe he lost it in the sun. That's the only thing I could think of. But if he didn't lose this in the sun, he looks back to Demaryius Thomas and doesn't try to make a play on the ball. It's just a bad play from him here.
Yeah, I mean, really, he turns around earlier. That could be a pick.
Oh, no doubt about it. If he finds the ball right here, which it might have been the sun or doesn't find it. If he jumps up here and he boxes out Demaryius Thomas, he could easily pick that ball. It's not like the ball was super high. That was probably 5 feet in the air,
right
6, maybe not 5. They're tall as hell. 6.5 feet in the air.
But it's right there. I mean, it's helmet height when it's caught, so it's right there for him.
Exactly. So he had a bad game. I'm not sure exactly what the stats are and how much he gave up, but one of Morris Claiborne's worst game as a Jet. I guess we can move on to the studs, which I don't think we should even talk about studs for this game, Klein. It's just an absolute stinker. This had like the Bucks game, the Browns game written all over it. We just played a better defense, So give me your – I guess we have to do it. Well, we don't really have to do anything. We could really do whatever the hell we want. But number 3, give me your number 3 stud. Let's talk some positives.
Steve Mclendon makes the list again. I thought he had a nice game, made a couple of nice plays. I know I retweeted some of the stuff you sent out. A couple of the plays that you highlighted that he made where he was, double team, shed the double team, still made the tackle. He's just a damn good player who doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah, I'm going to go over that in a little bit so I can just pull up those plays too, Glenn. But, yeah, I agree. He was like kind of teeter-tottering on being in my are you yawning or coughing, Glenn?
Both. I went how some people go from speed to power. I go from cough to yawn.
Cough to yawn. Classic Glenn.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with – let me see. I'm going to go with Jamal Adams. Let me see what this I got to bring it up. I'm going to try not to forget any plays and start talking about them before I bring them up on the screen this week. It'll be an accomplishment for me. And here they're just running it's a power play. And he just fills the C gap. Is it the C gap? A, B, C. Yeah, he fills the C gap. He avoids the pulling guard, which is a really nice play. A lot of the safeties you'll see will just kind of get sucked into that block and just get blocked out of the play, get kicked out. And he doesn't. He avoids it. He comes back in, makes the tackle. So nice play from Jamal Adams there. I think this was one of his very positive games, Glenn. Like I said, I don't know what he got. Let me see. 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Thoughts on Jamal Adams?
Yeah, I thought he looked really good. I thought he was, they asked him to play a lot of run support, and he did a really nice job there. We saw good anticipation from him and good explosiveness.
This is even better. This one's even better.
Yeah, that one is, just a great job. You see him anticipate the snap well, and, that blocker there has no chance. No chance at all.
No, and I think, and this is just film study most likely. He sees whatever the key is. Maybe it's the combo block on Williams or the combo block on, Mclendon, or the way the quarterback turns. They study all this stuff. Like, they have guys who are watching film hours and hours a day. Okay, well, when he turns around to the left, they're running the ball to the right 75%, whatever it is. Like, they have guys who really look that up.
Right, they're picking up on tendencies. Oh,
yeah, and that's all the position coaches. That's what they do. Okay, well, when he starts his break vertically, he's going to run a out route 75% of the time, whatever it is. Like, they study that stuff all the time. And here it's just an inside zone, and he comes from the backside B gap, shoots through it, and makes a tackle. This was impressive speed, hits the guy hard. Like, this was a really, really impressive play from Adams. And this is where you see him like, okay, he's a number 6 pick. He's doing really, really well. Pass game is a little bit more sketchy, but I still think he's, like I said, he's good. He just has a lot of room to grow as well. I don't think he's not Eric Berry type player yet. I think he could be. But like I said, still a lot of room to develop. But impressive play from him here, Glenn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on, who is your number 2 stud of the game? Sorry.
Number 2, Demario Davis. I thought he had a nice game. He was around the ball a lot. If I'm not mistaken, it was another double-digit tackle game for him. He's got quite a few of those this year.
He had 12 tackles.
Yeah, sometimes, or especially earlier in the year, those are sort of padded a little bit with some downfield stuff. But the Jets generally did a decent job against the run, and he was a big part of that. So he's a guy. I feel like he doesn't. At least for me personally, I feel like I've not given him his due respect this year, because he just, I don't know. I feel like for me anyway, I'm so focused on the young guys that sometimes I overlook how well he's played. And he really has. And I think that he's, we've talked about some guys who've probably earned, new contracts. He's probably one of them. He's not an old guy. He's still got some years left. It's a new position for him. Well, at least year 2. He's played a similar role in Cleveland last year. Yeah. But he's played phenomenal. And as I said earlier, the Jets need to fill as many gaps on that roster as possible. And there's no need to let him go and have to try to find a replacement.
I just get a notification really quick. That's funny. Jeremy Curley says Ghost may have put PEDs in his system. I don't know if you saw that. Weird. But yeah, in this play, Demario is actually my number 1. He had 12 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and whatever key he's reading here is probably the pulling guard. Usually you follow the pullers, pulling guard, and then the tight end, I believe it is, pulls as well. Dips around the right tackle's block and tackles Anderson in the ABC gap, D gap. So he tackles him in the D gap. Really nice play from him there. There's another play, Glenn. I have a couple plays of Demario Davis because, like I said, he's my number 1. So, of course, I'm going to have to bring up a couple of his plays if I could bring it up. I don't know why it's not coming up. All right. Thoughts on that play? Oh, never mind. I pulled it up. It froze a little bit. There's another – the Broncos ran this play so many times. They ran this play at least 5 times to counter the pulling guard and the pulling tight end or fullback, whoever it is. It's literally almost the same. It's the same exact play that you just saw.
Right.
This time, Glenn, instead of cutting around and filling the C gap, this time, well, actually, Lee does a good job filling too. But for the reason that we're talking about Demario Davis, he just blows up what guard is this? The right guard. Just blows him up. Yep. and it gets it on the tackle, just trucks him over. That is a football man's play right there, Glenn.
Yeah, and like I said, man, he's I think he's a guy you got to give him a deal. Not a bad job there either by Darren Lee, who somebody tried to go low on him. He was able to avoid him and get it on the tackle. Nice job by both of those guys there, and just that they're a nice tandem. They've been a real surprise for this team this year, Davis and Lee.
Yeah, I think Lee had like a quieter game, but for Lee, for what we thought he was in the beginning of the year, he was more quiet. I think he messed up a little bit on the goal line where he wasn't aggressive enough in penetrating a gap when they were in like a 3-7 look. But yeah, Demario Davis, when you're knocking a 300+ pound guard on their ass and getting to the running back on the same play, it's just that's a really impressive play from him right there. And then the last one I think is, let me see. Bring up one more, Glenn, and I'll get to my number 2 stud of the game. Like I said, he is my number 1. I think this is the same exact play again. Like I said, they ran it so many times this game. Yeah, same exact play. I literally three plays in a row, and I think he just knew what was coming. Here, fills again, gets past the right tackle's block yet again, fights off the pulling tight end's block, and gets in on the tackle again. So he whatever, I don't know why they kept running this play. It was not working, but all 3 times he played it pretty damn well that I brought up.
Yeah, well, hey, maybe that's why the Broncos lost 8 in a row up until this game. if keep running the same play that isn't working. But that's one thing the Jets have done a decent job at, several times this year is stopping the run, and they'll get a hell of a test this weekend to see if they can keep that up.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I haven't really heard too much on Kamara. I think from the last I saw that he is going to play this week.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
I think Ingram was a little bit like if I was the Saints though, I would like okay, he's active. I don't play them a lot of snaps until you see that you need them because you're not. And the funny thing is, actually, I can't go to New Orleans anymore. Something came up.
I didn't realize that. I was going to ask when you were leaving.
Yeah, well, something came up in one of my friends' lives, and he can't go, so I'm not going to go without them. So it sucks, but it happens. At this point, going to New Orleans to see Bryce Petty and the Jets get smacked down by the Saints, because we kind of pick out a game. Okay, we were going to go to a stadium every year. I saw New Orleans. It's okay. New Orleans is 7-9 last year. Okay, they have a chance to win that game. It might be a good game now. The way the Saints are playing with Bryce Petty coming in, fine. Okay, whatever. I won't go. That's fine. But my number 2, Glenn, like I said, my number 1 is Demario Davis, who's your number 2. Actually, just give me your number 1, I guess.
My number 1, David Bass. I felt like he had a nice game for himself. He's a guy who had a nice start early in the year. And he just kind of went by the wayside. We didn't hear a whole lot from him. The Jets basically, the problem with that spot this year is they have a few different guys they've been using at outside linebacker in that spot, and none of them are bad. Just no one's good enough that they've they're average. They have a few average guys, so they're just rotating them out. I don't think any of them have been a real liability per se. But no one's played well enough that they could just stick with one guy. I think Josh Martin has done some good things. I think Bass has done some good things. Freddie Bishop, not so much. But
and I like Martin. I like Bass for what he is.
I like Martin a lot.
I don't know if they should necessarily be starting because Jordan Jenkins is a strong side linebacker. He's a guy who put in over the tight end to where obviously if there's a tight end to let's say the right, Jordan Jenkins is going to line up. That's the strong side. That's usually where they're going to run the ball. He's the run type of guy. I don't think Josh Martin. I think he might be more of a strong side guy too, but he doesn't have that luxury of playing that position on the Jets defense. The Jets need a pass rusher. They don't have one. And this was a nice play,
That's
power.
Right, Bass. Three sacks for Bass on a couple hundred snaps. Projected over a full season. That's an 8 or 9 sack year for him.
Yeah, which obviously we have to go into. Okay, well, if he played more snaps, is he going to be as well rested? Is he
right? Is he going to hold up? He's never had that type of workload. But I get what you're saying. But he's played well. He had another sack this week, and thought I'd give him a little credit.
Oh, Glenn, I'm not even trying to be a dick. I know there's people who probably listen and are like, well, if he played more snaps, I'm just bringing up points. I agree. I agree with you. And like I said, this is just power into a rip move, gets position to the power to come through with the rip, gets the sack. So he was on one of my offensive guys who played well. I didn't put him in my studs. My number 2 was actually this was a nice play. Marcus Maye. I think he only had three tackles, Glenn. Let me just confirm 4 tackles.
He did play really well though.
Yeah, he did. He made plays in the run game. If he doesn't get beat over his head, that's a good play. And here, this was an almost play, but here he times a snap, comes from deep. This is another inside zone play. Blitzes through the A-B gap, or fires to the B gap, and almost gets. I think this is Booker. Is that his name? 23. And tackles him, but he just missed. Like he gets him, but he just can't leg tackle. There. But the fact that he recognized it and sped through the B gap and timed the snap almost perfectly, where he has a little bit of hesitation in real time, but still really nice play from Marcus Maye there, even though he didn't make the play. That's the stuff that you don't see on the stat sheet, Glenn. So Marcus Maye, like I said, made a couple of plays in the run game, didn't get beat over his head, which is obviously a positive for a guy who plays mostly deep. This was another inside zone on the goal line out of, a jumbo, so they're bringing in extra tackles, extra tight ends here. And this is actually a nice play by Mo Wilkerson too, which, people obviously shit on Mo Wilkerson for obvious reasons. Mo Wilkerson's right here. I think he's just the 0-2. He's a 4 tech, and he actually fills it nicely. Beats a combo block, comes over a guy, and reaches over the guard or the right tackle and grabs the running back. But Marcus Maye, too, if you can see him right here, is just being really patient, waits for the run, and he sees where Booker or Anderson's going to try to go and, explodes through the C gap and helps Wilkerson with the tackle. So that's a really nice play right there to sniff out where the running back is going to go from Marcus Maye.
Yeah, they had a couple good plays, down around the goal line. They've been better up front. As much as I got aggravated when he got an early penalty, Mike Pennell has looked like a better player of late. So not a lot to be happy about in this game, but there were some decent defense. And look, they lost 23-0. I think the biggest issue was not being able to get off the field on third down. It's not like they went out there and gave up 42 points, but at the same time, you're playing a team that's down to the third quarterback. They lost 8 in a row. And so 23 isn't a ton, but it's too many to this team. But all in all, they are doing some good things on defense. And, again, building blocks for the future, as they say.
I don't know why I call this an outside zone on my screen, but it was actually an inside zone. I think it's because of the release of the running back. But you could tell, like I said, inside zone. Okay, everybody's playing. He takes him. He takes him. He takes him. He takes him. He comes out and then he tries to kick him out. Which if this tight end or the tackle should kick this defensive end outside linebacker out, it's usually inside zone trying to go inside. If this is an outside zone, he try to seal him inside or reach block, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, inside zone. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm thinking out loud, Glenn. Yeah, nice job from both Wilkerson and Marcus Maye on this play. And then the last play I'll bring up of the studs. Then we'll get into some other things. We'll bring up some less videos and stuff like that. And if you're not listening, or if you are just listening, which I appreciate everybody. Well, I don't know if we talk about plays too much. Maybe we do. Maybe we don't. But people seem to enjoy it. Go on YouTube and watch along with us. We're breaking down the plays as they're playing on your screen. If you're watching on YouTube, it's a lot easier than trying to think, oh, well, he did this play. Okay, well, what was everybody else doing, et cetera. You can actually see it. If you go on YouTube, go to JetNation, hit subscribe. And right there, you can see Glenn's beautiful face, my big-ass head, and watch us break down some film. What is this play? And this was probably his best play here, Glenn, where this was a Mike zone. This is another zone running play. Deron Lee is going to take this fullback on, and he's going to he's going to squeeze the run because he's taking on the fullback on his outside shoulder, making the running back cut inside. He cuts inside, and Marcus Maye fires up and makes a big-time tackle because I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't see it. But if the running back was a cutback, there's a pretty big size hole right there if he was able to get backside. And Marcus Maye fires up through the hole, sniffs it out, makes a tackle by the leg. So really impressive play from the run game. I think Marcus Maye has been stepping up and making more plays in the run game in recent weeks.
Yeah, he absolutely has. As a guy who's spent the majority of the season, playing as a deep safety, single deep safety, in a variety of different looks that the Jets have employed. They've kept him back there a lot, but when he has been around the line, he's looked good. But I think I'd like to see a breakdown of that. I feel like he spent more time around the line of scrimmage in this game than he has in recent weeks, and he did a really nice job up there.
In this play, actually, Demario Davis kind of comes too hard inside, where if he cuts back, this is actually Demario Davis's fault. He doesn't contain his backside gap responsibility, but regardless, it's a nice play from Maye. But okay, Glenn, let's get off of that. The studs and the duds, we got through that. Let's see. Hey, we can talk about the positives from the offense, Glenn, if you want. Is there anything at all that was positive from this offense this game? Not one thing. Because mine says zip, zero, nothing from the offense.
According to PFF, Wesley Johnson didn't allow a sack.
Honestly, that one play, the double, the guys both penetrating through the A gap, that wasn't his fault. I think in general terms, I think this is one of Wesley Johnson's better games. Now, is that a good game? No. But at the same time, I think it was really Shell, Carpenter, and Winters who completely shit the bed this game. Yeah. It wasn't really Wesley Johnson, which is weird.
So there you go. We've been dogging Wesley Johnson all year, deservedly so. But I do not know Wesley Johnson, but I am sure he's a very nice man. So I am happy to say that he was good this week.
Okay, Glenn. So then positives from the offense. One thing, I guess, Wesley Johnson wasn't a complete shit show. Congratulations,
He
Wesley
was
Johnson.
good.
I would say he
Good
was.
Good job, Wesley. Don't listen to what Joe says this week.
I would say he's not terrible. But let's see. Okay, so let's go through the negatives of the offense, Glenn. We talked about the offensive line. Just to read off some stats, 6 first downs this game, embarrassing. One of them was by a penalty. So 5 first downs not by penalty. How many times – and I was, watching the game, and they crossed the 50-yard line. I'm like, is this the first time they – did they cross the 50-yard line only twice? The one was a McCown pick, and I don't know if they crossed – I think they crossed it one more time. So they were in Broncos territory, I believe, twice.
I think it was twice.
Dos. 100 total yards, terrible. 2.1 yards per play.
Second worst in franchise history, I think.
Was it?
Worse than 72, I think was the number I saw.
2.1 yards per play. Just absolutely terrible. I think this was probably can you think of a worse offensive performance in a long time, Glenn?
I mean, I'd have to see the numbers, but I vaguely remember many years ago when the Jets were down on their third or fourth quarterback, and I want to say they started Brooks Bollinger against the Carolina Panthers, and I think he had that type of game, and I think he threw 4 or 5 picks. So that one springs to mind right away. And really, there were some in terms of total yards, not really, but Mark Sanchez had quite a few games where they couldn't score a touchdown or couldn't get double digits. Lost to the Packers 9-6 one year. So Jets fans have seen a lot of bad offense, but this one is up there. But again, this one at the same time, you put it on the offensive, the coaching philosophy, which was let's give up and get the hell out of here and stop trying.
Yeah, I think Josh McCown, just in total 6 for 12, 46 yards here. I don't think he played terribly, but this is a bad decision. You can tell in the beginning if you really slow it down and look, he's reading the safety. By the time he comes off the safety is drifting towards the side of the field where Anderson is on the 9 route. It's not like Anderson – I can understand this throw if Anderson beats Talib up the line of scrimmage. He's trying to fire it in there. But obviously that's not happening. He has inside leverage on Talib. There's a safety coming across, and he throws this ball. Easy interception. That was just telegraphed. Looks to the safety, stares at Anderson, inside leverage on a 9 route. This is a really bad play from Josh McCown here. So I don't think he had a great game plan. So I think he's a negative of the offense. Oh
yeah, he was bad. It was his worst game of the year, and just nothing went right. Sometimes you have those games. Last year it was an entire season. I said a few times when we talked about last year about how bad the secondary was, and it's almost like you look at it and it's just contagious. When everyone around you is screwing up. At what point is it poor individual performances, and what point is it just a mindset where one error leads to another, and it just the snowball effect. And they did a lot of things poorly. Obviously, I mean, look, it's hard to get shut out in the NFL. It doesn't happen very often, and it certainly shouldn't happen against a team that's coming off 8 straight losses. But they managed to do it. I mean, one of the biggest surprises to me was that. Was how little we saw Austin Seferian-Jenkins. When you look at the Broncos depth chart at corner, they have 3 pretty damn good corners. So I kind of felt like this is going to be a day where ASJ gets a lot of looks because there's a good chance their receivers aren't going to create a lot of separation. I think he had 2 targets, 1 catch, something like that.
Yeah, I think he had one catch. But yeah, they're not using him vertically down the field. They're using him. Somebody's asked me on Twitter about that, and they're using him as he's either chipping a guy and releasing on a flat route or a shorter, hitch or slant or whatever it may be, shorter routes. Maybe it's because they want to pull the linebackers down and give the other guys more space over the middle. I don't know necessarily what it is. Maybe they want him to block more, etc. But yeah, not really using ASJ a lot. I don't necessarily love that, but for the people who are saying, the pro ball thing, Glenn, we've talked about that many times. I think he's average at this point.
One thing with him, Joe, and I actually thought this earlier, and I haven't had a minute to look it up.
Yeah.
But if you look at the way his career has gone, this is probably actually. I'm going to pull this up right now. But if you look at everyone knows the story about getting him off waivers from the Bucs, because of the drinking stuff, and now he's cleaned up his life, yada, yada, yada. I think if you look at his reps with the Bucs, for the couple of years that he was there, he's never, prior to this season, this is the most football he's ever played. He started 9 games as a rookie.
Yeah.
He started 3 games the following year before being let go, and then had a couple starts with the Jets. They talk about the rookie wall. I know he's not a rookie, but this is a workload he has never experienced. Like, is he breaking down a little bit because of the just not being accustomed to this type of workload? I'm grasping at straws to try to figure out a way for a guy who was so effective now has 5 catches in his last 3 games, and he's essentially disappeared. I don't know if it's by design or if he's just lost a little spring in his step, and we'll find out. He's got 3 games left. We'll see if he does anything. But I had that thought today, trying to figure out, like, how does a guy go from such an essential part of the offense to completely gone? And I thought, you know what? This is probably, and it is, by far the most football he's ever played in the season.
Yeah, it's something I want to pay attention to because, like I said, somebody asked me about it today, and like I said, I can't watch every single player on the field, every single play, because it'd just be impossible to watch film for 47 hours. But I want to see that too. I know they're using him a lot short and chipping a lot and stuff like that. But yeah, he hasn't been being used a lot. Don't necessarily know why, but figure that out. Glenn, talk about negatives from the offense. We'll get into Petty a little bit. We'll save that for itself. Negatives from the defense. Roberts screen. He had an okay game. There was one time he took a terrible angle again. He takes terrible angles. Decent amount. I have that play up on the film review if people want to check it out. I don't want to bring it up now, but just awful angle. Wasn't even close to tackling the guy. The guy just had to cut back. Like, Glenn, you're running and screen is running on an angle 5 yards in front of you, and he just kind of stopped and just went the other way. It was like, what are you doing, screen? So I thought he was bad. Any other negatives from the defense you want to talk about before we get to the positives and negatives positives from the defense and the, I guess, offense, I think? No, we're talking about the positives from the offense.
Secondary allowed too many big completions. And like I said, the Broncos, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they converted a ton of 3rd and longs. It felt like they had a couple drives there where every single series there was a 3rd and long that they converted. And, they have to be better than that.
Yeah, I agree. That happens. I think like the Rex Ryan years is like 3rd and 13. You're like, oh, damn, they're going to convert. And they convert, whether it be by penalty, whatever it may be, assignment, Darrell Roberts or screen not looking back to the ball.
I thought screen looked all right this week. He wasn't that wasn't as bad. Yeah,
I would say he was okay. Just okay. But just that one missed tackle. I was like, what the hell are you doing? Glenn, you talked about McClendon. And this play, coming off of a combo block on another, this is a split inside zone.
I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, the other play was even more impressive. Wait until I don't know if you saw that one. He's coming off a combo block. He anchors down. He doesn't get pushed around. He jerks.
Isn't it? No, sorry. I was talking.
Oh, you're talking about the other play?
Yeah, I thought it was this one. There was one where maybe it was this one. I thought he fought through 2 guys. I thought the center was on him a little bit longer, but yeah.
No, the other one, I'll say, I don't know if it's the other one you're talking about, but yeah, here, like I said, just combo block. He anchors down. He jerks the the right guard, and then just throws him out of the way, makes the tackle. Really impressive play from McClendon. And it seems like we're bringing up plays from McClendon every single week, Glenn. So if people say that we're not, and that, why did he play good this year, or you didn't really say anything about him during the year, I think every single week we're bringing up plays from McClendon. And before we get to the caller, we'll just talk about the other play really quick before we get into some negatives, or not some negatives, but the other stuff we want to talk about from the defense and the positive side. Even though I guess we can just kind of finish it out. Overall, I thought Wilkerson played okay. 6 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. We talked about McClendon now, who had 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. David Bass, 3 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. We already talked about David Bass before we brought up that play as well. This was the other play I wanted to bring up of McClendon. And this is just
awesome.
This is just a manly play, and
that's like Chris Jenkins stuff right there.
Yeah, and all their they're running a power play until, the offensive guard is pulling. And they're just this left guard is just trying to down block him to the center inside and hold him inside. And what Mclendon does is he just uses his own momentum against him, where this is they actually call this a hump move, where usually on a hump move, if you were just straight up lined up on a guy, you try to rip to, let's say, the left side. And then when the guy tries to react to your rip to the left side, you throw him over, you come under his body, under his opposite armpit. It's hard to show it without showing it. So if you were trying to say the guy is here, his head is here, you're trying to rip through this side while the guy is leaning through the rip, you're gonna take your arm and go under his armpit and throw him over. So he didn't have to do that fake rip move or that fake move on the other side because the guy was already leaning that way. But he just takes his arm and just throws this guy to the ground. This was, like you said, this is like Chris Jenkins stuff. Like, this is dominant defensive line play right here, and that was just crazy impressive on film, Glenn. That is the best play of the game right there. Yeah. I mean, he's and he plays a spot where he may have a few good years left in him. I'd have no problem at all with bringing him back. High character guy, plays at a high level. Probably would have to pay a ton of money to have him back. I think this is the final year of his deal. Wasn't it a 2-year deal he signed? No, I think he has another year on his deal, Glenn. But next year the cap ramifications, if you cut him, are not a lot at all. I could be wrong.
But there's no reason to cut him. That's the thing.
No, and honestly, I think if Wilkerson is going to be gone, that's one. I think now, do I think he's the perfect nose tackle, zero technique, who's going to eat up two guys? No, but I've said in a 4-3 defensive tackle, a guy who's in a single penetration, just try to shoot through a gap. I think he's a really good player. And I can see the Jets using him next year as, a 1-tech, a 2-tech, a 3-tech, use him interior, and then maybe you re-sign Pennell or you get Deion Simon and they play more of that nose tackle type of thing. And then maybe you get another kind of like a Ledger Doozable type of guy to play as a 5-tech or whatever you want. They're going to have to address defensive end, and I think he can make up for that a little bit because Wilkerson does play interior a lot, 3-tech, whatever it may be. So I think he could take over that role and play more. And then you just get some guys to kind of supplement him. Does that make sense, Glenn?
Yep, absolutely.
So, all right, let's get to the caller. One, we don't have a screen caller or a call screener anymore, not a screen caller. So I don't know who you are, and I don't want to just guess. I don't know if I've seen this number, at least in a while. Caller, who is this and what's up?
Yeah, hello?
What's up?
Hello?
Who is this?
What's going on? It's Ronnie from Queens.
Ronnie, what's up?
How you doing?
What's up, guys? I just tuned in. I don't really I didn't hear what you guys were talking about early on in the show. I just tuned in. What are you guys talking about?
Oh, well,
A little bit of everything today. Just the Jets' performance this weekend in Denver. Some of the guys who stood out and played well, which there weren't many of, and touched a little bit. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about what we expect from Bryce Petty moving forward, and why, at least from my angle anyway, why so many people dislike him so much after 4 starts.
Okay, yeah, we could definitely talk about Bryce. Honestly, I wanted Bryce to get a shot way earlier in the season. So it was to everybody, it was surprising how McCown's been playing. But after that 3rd preseason game versus the Giants, where he almost brought us back, I wanted to see him like in some real game action ever since, and I do feel he deserves it. So I'm kind of happy he's getting the opportunity these last 3 games to show something, to at least be on the roster for next season.
Yeah, but and Glenn put it nicer. We were talking about that. We were talking about the absolute shit show that was the Jets game this week. Now with Bryce Petty, do you think that he has any opportunity, since we are talking about that? And we're not one of those shows who really likes to talk about quarterbacks all the time, but since we're bringing it up, do you think there's anything he could do in the next 3 games to be a starter next year for the Jets to go into the offseason and say Petty is the guy, or do you think that's kind of unrealistic? Because I think that's what we all think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unrealistic for the last 3 games, but you could definitely stay on the team for next year, and depending on what we do, free agency or draft or whatever, he could probably compete next year if we bring in like a rookie, depending on where we draft them, or what kind of free agent we bring in. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, no. I interrupted you, and we can talk about the game a little bit after this. But just with free agency, we're talking about quarterbacks, and we asked the last caller. what do you think? Is it Kirk Cousins? Are you signing Tyrod if he's available? Are you signing one of the veteran free agents? Are you going to bring in a quarterback from the draft? Even though that's a bigger risk, obviously, because even number one picks like Jamarcus Russell can completely shit the bed, or RG3 with his injuries, whatever it may be. What are you looking to do for the quarterback position this offseason?
Honestly, number one, Kirk Cousins. I like him. He kind of scared. I mean, he doesn't scare me, but 30. I don't know about the $30 million. Right? That's a lot. Even though we're gonna have a lot of money, the $30 million is gonna be a lot of money a year. And but I have a idea, maybe something that we might be able to do. I've been looking at over in Indianapolis, Jacoby Brissett been playing kind of good, and they're expecting Andrew Luck back. So maybe I think maybe we could try to trade maybe a number 2 for Brissett. Or even A.J. McCarron, we could give him a look to see what these guys could do. What you still think about that?
I think at this point, I mean, I like Brissett a lot. McCarron, I think, is sort of a mid-level starter. I think he's a guy that you bring in for a year. Like those would have been good guys to bring in this year to let them audition.
This year.
To go into next year and bring them in as anything more than backups, I think would be irresponsible. I think this year has to, we mentioned Kirk Cousins, and, a lot of people, myself included, have mentioned the price tag, the $30 million. But, the reality there is that none of us know what the price tag is going to be. Kind of logically, you would think that, because it seems that that's sort of the stratosphere that the next big quarterback contract will be, whether it's $30 million or $26 million, $27 million. It's going to be a lot of money. But I just look at it, and I think, you're going to have $80, $90 million in cap space. You could refuse to sign him and then watch him sign somewhere else and possibly win a Super Bowl. And you can have possibly the next Mark Sanchez on your roster because you thought that, you were going to get a quarterback with the 8th pick. I know there's a lot of Jets fans that are a lot older than me, but I've been a fan long enough that I'm just like, I'm so fed up with not having a quarterback, and I'm so fed up with rolling the dice on draft picks. I would have no problem. Give me Cousins and a draft pick. I want more than one quarterback.
You want all the quarterbacks.
I want all of them. Sign all the quarterbacks, and I don't care. I want a quarterback. I'd be. Get a quarterback.
Yeah, Glenn, you froze up there a little bit, but yeah, I agree with you. We've talked about this before. I don't want to talk about it too long, but yeah, if they can sign Kirk Cousins, even if there's a couple extra $1 million and you're securing a guy who, in my opinion, is a mid-level starter, and you can supplement him with a decent team around him. He's a guy who could bring you through a playoff run. Now you have to draft the right guys and bring in the right guys in free agency, but that's on the GM and the coaches, whoever they decide to bring in. But yeah, I'm fine with signing Cousins. If you're going to trade for a guy like McCarron or Brissett or whatever you're going to do, I definitely think you need to bring in a rookie, whether it be first or second round, to compete with them. But if they were to get McCarron and he's going into the season next year as their starter, then it's pretty much game over, where I'm going to be pretty frustrated. But Caller, what do you think about the? Oh, go ahead. Want to comment?
No, I was saying. I agree, but I was just looking at it like, Browns was about to give up a second-round pick from McCarron, so maybe they seen something, but then again, it is from the Browns, so I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's from the same team that passed on Carson Wentz,
Yeah, but let's not follow in the Browns' footsteps at all. And is this your first time calling, by the way?
Yeah, it's my first time. I listen every week this season, but I never called. It's my first time.
Well, call. I want to ask you another question, but definitely call again and keep listening. We definitely appreciate that. Now, you wanted to talk a little bit about the Broncos game, because the Broncos game was just terrible. We go down, and like if you listen, we break down a lot of film. We went over all the film, and just an absolute. It was just a really crappy game. So, I know what you're going to say, that how bad it was, but I guess just give me some overall thoughts about it.
Honestly and gladly, I missed the game, because I had took my daughter to Camelback Lodge, so I was upset when the game was going on.
Oh, nice.
But after I was checking the score during the game, and I was kind of happy I didn't actually see the game, but I'm just looking at the film. And, I didn't really see too much good in the game, honestly. Like, it was very disappointing. I was hoping we could have went maybe 9-7, maybe snuck in a backdoor to playoffs. because I hate to root for the team to lose, even though I do want a high draft pick, but I kind of wanted them to win this last 4 games, but that's not going to happen. So now I'm just looking forward to Petty, like we just talked about.
Yeah, and I can understand either people who want to tank. I understand, you can get, the number 1 draft pick, number 2 draft pick, and then it'll be people from the opposite side who will say, oh, well, high draft picks don't obviously guarantee anything. But then from the other side, okay, well, you don't have to trade up as much to get into the top 10 or whatever it is. There's arguments from both sides. But as a fan, I understand watching a game and wanting them to win every single game because I do too. But, yeah, it's disappointing.
Yeah.
Definitely a disappointing game. But you said your name is Ronnie, right?
Yeah, Ronnie.
Do you have a Twitter or anything you want to shout out before we let you go and get onto the next caller?
Yeah, on Twitter, is POI. I mean, I think I talked to you guys with Twitter. POI_page, POI_PAGE. That's really it. That's all I really have is Twitter.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot for calling in.
Make sure to tweet us, and we'll definitely shout you out, and hopefully we hear from you again, man.
All right, cool. Appreciate it, guys.
Take care.
Have a good one. All right, good call from Ronnie there. Yeah, I can understand wanting to go 9-7. What Jets fan wouldn't want to go 9-7, Glenn? It's just obviously I thought it was a little bit unrealistic, but people who want the team to win, there's 2 sides to every story. Yeah, you want a better draft pick. At the same time, if they were to go 7-9, 8-8, and really exceed my expectations, then the Jets are obviously in a better spot going towards the future. So you don't need as much. So I understand both sides of it. When I watch a game, I root for them though.
Yeah, can't not root for him. I can.
Yeah, like I said, I was with Kyle, and as soon as he sat down before the game started, he's like, "Yeah, I'm rooting for them to lose." I was like, "Are you serious, dude?" Like, he's actually one of those guys, which I understand. Like I said, we've talked about both sides, but Kyle, you're just a bad person. I know you're gonna listen, so you're just terrible. But let's get on to the next caller, Glenn. 321. Do not know who this is off the top of my head either. I think if I saw Hakeem's number, maybe Alex's number.
That's a Florida number right there.
Oh, because you used to live in the dirty South.
Florida's not really the South. I mean, geographically it is, but realistically it's not.
Yeah, it's not like Alabama or something like that, even though they're relatively close, just different lifestyles. But all right, 321, what's up?
What is going on, gentlemen? CJ DeSimone coming to you from Palm Bay, Florida over here. Glenn already knows that I got my blowtorch ready.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure. I know you're a very passionate guy, so I'm sure you weren't very happy to see the Jets get just absolutely shit on by the Denver Broncos, who just came off of 8-game losing streak.
It's one thing to watch this team be completely inept, where they're making mistakes, and you could understand from the young core. But man, I tell you, first off, I do have to flip a giant middle finger to the NFL. Okay, for the NFL, their packaging rights, as far as their broadcast rights, because of the fact that Jets were on a 4:05 game and there were 3 other games playing, and being in the butt crack of America, which is now known as Florida. Okay, some people would call it the armpit. I like to call it the butt crack because it just seems like we get the absolute worst games televised on television.
And a couple of hurricanes.
It's ridiculous, but nevertheless, I got to listen to the game on my computer via ESPN New York, and you could just tell just by the tone of voice listening to Bob Wischusen and Marty Lyons that the Jets really did not put any type of effort forth. So, my running jokes on Twitter was that, if anyone got the opportunity to listen to the Jet Factor podcast directly after the game, was that I thought that, the Jets got off the plane and they decided that they were going to get Rocky Mountain high. They got so high that they forgot they had a football game to play because they forgot to show up. Yeah. Other than that, we had a bunch of bums in disguise who actually, played with the New York Jets uniforms, and the whole team was held hostage in a hotel somewhere, and we just had a bunch of scrubs running around because 23-0 is completely unacceptable at any level. And this is the type of game that I'm sorry to say, regardless of Todd Bowles' body of work for this entire season, and you know what? Given the roster and considering that the beginning of the year, we've just completely been getting shit on by ESPN and the media and everything about the Jets are going to be historically bad. They're going to go 0-16. For this team to even win 5 games, okay, they've completely overachieved. But another thing, too, that a lot of people are not really taking a look at because they're just so pissed about these games that we're losing. They're in every single game. There has only been 2 games that the Jets have not been in this year. That was the Raiders because they completely shut it off at halftime. Okay, I don't give a shit what anybody says. They completely shut it off at halftime, and I really think that if Todd Bowles would have pulled his head out of his ass and made some halftime adjustments, that score would not even have been as bad as it was at the end of that Raiders game. And I can guarantee you that Marshawn Lynch would not have been doing his stupid-ass dance on the sideline over there. Okay? That's number one. Number two, the NFL decided the NFL and their referees association decided to frickin' stick up a big middle finger. The Jets are probably the only team in the NFL that gets screwed in their own house by the referees. I mean, how many more ASJ touchdowns are we going to need to see overturned because of some bullshit excuse by some jackass in a control room in New York City whose definition of a catch is completely different from everybody else's? Okay, for 100 years it's been a catch. Oh no, but this jackass walks in the building. Oh no, he fumbled. He lost control of the ball. Even though he was in midair, he still didn't make a football move, and he rolled out of bounds. So it's not a catch. It's like, am I watching the NFL or am I watching some sort of Twilight Zone league? You know? Yeah. But nevertheless, I digress. Getting back to the Broncos game, they made no adjustments. They were still at 13-0. The one thing that really pissed me off was you had 34 seconds left on the clock, and you still had the ball. You're going to take a knee, and you're going to go into halftime with a 13-0 deficit, knowing that you're getting your ass kicked, knowing that probably with 34 seconds left, the Broncos are probably going to be playing prevent defense, so you have a chance to at least pull a 3 out, cut the deficit to 10. I know you're going to get the ball back at the beginning of the third quarter. Make some sort of an effort. Don't just give me this white flag, oh, we give up. You know, and this type of game, Joe and Glenn, I'm going to be honest with you, this is the type of game that we just witnessed this Sunday that regardless of the body of work, that has NFL coaches lose their jobs over one game like this where the team, regardless of adjustments being made, regardless of, oh, well, the Broncos just came out and they were better prepared and so on and so forth. You know, these are the games that get NFL head coaches fired. They are.
No, it's hard to disagree. I mean, I've said it before on the show many times. I've been not the biggest Todd Bowles fan. I try to give credit where it's due. I said he did a great job a couple weeks ago against Kansas City, kind of rallying his team when they fell behind early. But the whole essentially mailing it in, just kind of quitting before the half, and then doing it again late. Now, of course, late in the game was pretty much over. But I don't know how you said 35 seconds. In all reality, if he calls a timeout before Denver kicks that field goal, rather than let them run another 25, 30 seconds off the clock, just probably get the ball with a minute left and 2 timeouts. And like you said,
it was 3rd and 12. They had 3 timeouts. They could have called a timeout if they stopped them on 3rd down. They could have got the ball back with probably like a minute and 30 seconds left.
That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah, they could have stopped it and gotten the ball with plenty time and 1 or 2 timeouts to try to make a play. And I don't know what kind of message that sends to your team. I mean, the players aren't stupid. They're looking at the clock. They're looking at the scoreboard, and they know that their coach just decided to lay down and let's just let's head into the locker room. We're not going to try to make a play. And then again, late in the game, that I don't know, the late in the game stuff bothered me more than, well, I think they both bothered me quite a bit.
Yeah, that too.
But I think not taking advantage of every single possible rep you can get your young quarterbacks at this point is just, I don't know. Like I said to Joe earlier, I do not know why Todd Bowles doesn't like Bryce Petty. I understand. Maybe he thinks Bryce Petty isn't an NFL quarterback. Maybe he and Mike McCagan are not on the same page. Maybe he didn't want Petty to get Maybe he didn't want Petty to get drafted. Maybe he doesn't want Petty on the roster. And, which does raise a whole other set of questions between, McCagan and Bowles because, we heard from Rappaport that multiple teams called the Jets this offseason to try to trade for Bryce Petty, and the Jets wouldn't trade him. So the GM won't trade him, but the head coach won't play him. So, like what's going on here? You have a wasted roster spot, basically. So it's a tough spot for Bryce Petty to be in, and we'll give him a shot. And hopefully he plays well enough over these last 3 games to.
Glenn, you're freezing up a little bit, but CJ, thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? It definitely does beg to answer the question, and Glenn was absolutely spot on with all of his takes. And one of the biggest questions that it raises is that if Todd Bowles has no faith in Bryce Petty, all right, if Mike McCagnon drafted him, why doesn't McCagnon turn around and say to Bowles, look, you need to play this kid. I don't give a shit what you think of McCown. I don't give a shit what you're trying to do here. You need to play these kids, and you need to figure out what it is that we have. Because otherwise, what did we draft him for? What do we have Christian Hackenberg looking like a goof on the sideline, considering that through the entire preseason, through the entire training camp, all they did was force feed this kid the football, and he time after time after time proved that he is incapable of running an NFL offense properly. He's got 1 drive that he scored a touchdown, maybe 2. I probably fell asleep during the second one because I was so pissed off with the first one. It's like how many more failures at quarterback are we going to be forced to sit here and watch until we finally say, you know what, enough's enough. We haven't had a franchise quarterback since Joe Namath, Ken O'Brien, Chad Pennington. Can we go out and get that next franchise quarterback that's going to be here for the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years, and at least is going to be competitive week in and week out? How much more do we have to do? How much more bullshit do we have to put up with at the quarterback position? But then what about the offensive line? Because it doesn't matter if you go get a quarterback. If you don't have an offensive line to protect him, this guy's going to get his ass kicked week in and week out. We've been watching it to Josh McCown.
Oh, yeah, CJ, don't even get me – trust me, the offensive line every single week on this show, we just talked about it for probably 20 minutes, how bad the offensive line is. And you can blame Wesley Johnson.
2 words, dude.
Go ahead.
2 words, Joe. Criminally neglected. And you know what? I want to give a shout-out to my boy @Spotty Blackman because he said this on my show. He said this on Jets Hub Radio. He said this on Let's Talk Jets. He said this on every single podcast that he has had the ability to come on and say it. And you know what? Every single time, everybody says, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, you're not taking a look at this, you're not counting this guy, and this guy's playing good. He's right. He's right. And you know what? I agree with him. This offensive line is freaking criminally neglected. Kelvin Beachum was not the answer. Wesley Johnson at center is not the answer. Even Brian Winters is not the answer.
No, well, none of them are. We talk about that. I don't know if you see the film reviews I do every single week, CJ, but since week one, me and Glenn have been talking every single week about how bad this offensive line was. It's Carpenter too. It's not even just Winters and Johnson and Beachum. Carpenter's been a joke this year as well relative to his expectations. So yeah, I agree with that. They're missing a lot of the problem with the rosters right now too. Is they're missing a lot of talent at premium positions. They don't have a good offensive line. They don't have a pass rusher, outside linebacker. They don't have multiple lockdown corners. You need corners in the NFL, especially if you're playing nickel all the time. So they're missing a lot. So you need a quarterback, but you need a lot of that other stuff to kind of support him. But with the quarterback, we just talked to caller before. What are you doing with the quarterback situation in the offseason? Are you going with a guy like a Kirk Cousins or Tyrod Taylor if you're available? Or are you taking a risk in the draft? What are you doing there?
I think you're probably going to have to do a little bit of both. It was kind of funny because Kyle and Ben actually put up, do you take a flyer on Tyrod Taylor and possibly draft Lamar Jackson? And that's actually a doable tandem, which probably will not cost the Jets all that much money. Now, if you go out on a limb and you decide to say that Kirk Cousins is your guy and you're going to get him at all costs, by all means, get him. But you also still have to take into consideration that Kirk Cousins is having a bad year because he's playing behind a bad offensive line. Not because he doesn't have weapons over there in Washington. So the question is, how is it that you're going to be able to take him from that environment and bring him over here and make him more successful? Give him the ability to take place, or let me rephrase that. Give him the ability to take that next step forward, which would be something positive for the Jets. But you can't do that unless you're willing to spend the money on the offensive line. Now, do I want you to go out and fix the offensive line in free agency? No. because free agency is maybe going to be a stopgap for 2, maybe 3 years if you're lucky. Okay, you have to be able to do what the Dallas Cowboys did. Take the risks on the unsexy picks, on the unpopular picks. Last year, they had the best offensive line in football, and Dak Prescott benefited from it, and so did Ezekiel Elliott. And their offense, it ended up being top 10 in the league. Okay, there is no reason why the Jets cannot repeat 2009, 2010, where we had Mark Sanchez, as shitty of a quarterback as he was, he benefited from the fact that the Jets had the best offensive line in the game, the best rusher in Thomas Jones, and the best rushing attack in the league. There is no reason why the Jets cannot do that again.
That's a problem too with Josh McCown this year is when you try to run the ball and you're getting 2.6 yards per game like that, or in some games like they did this game, there's no way to help a guy like that. And regardless whether it's Kirk Cousins or a young guy, at least like Kirk Cousins, okay, maybe he can overcome it. He's seen defenses and stuff like that. But even if you draft, let's say Baker Mayfield at 8, how is he going to play behind an offensive line that's this bad? Or maybe a guy like Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, whoever you want. But yeah, offensive line for whoever comes in is absolute necessity. And CJ, last question before we go, and I want you to promote your show and all that stuff. You're talking about Todd Bowles before, and some of the problem with Todd Bowles and the Petty thing is something else that we've talked about on the show is we don't know if he's been assured a job. So, okay, well, if he's not assured a job, is he going to try to get a couple extra wins with Josh McCown? If he was assured a job and he's not playing Petty earlier in the season, then it's a little bit frustrating. So we're kind of like debating that a little bit, because we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. But with all this stuff that we're talking about, Todd Bowles and how he's done okay this year, where I think Morton and the offense for, how bad they're supposed to be are really the part of the team that's kind of keeping them in games, obviously other than last game. But some of the games they're winning, like versus the Bills, 37 points, versus the Chiefs, last week they scored 38 points. So I think the offense is better than the defense at this point, where we know Todd Bowles is a defensive type of coach, and they're letting up big-time points.
Yeah, I agree.
This year. So you're looking at the Chiefs game, they let up 31 points. The Panthers game, they let up 38 points or whatever it was. So with all this stuff that we're talking about, you're bringing in a new quarterback. You have 90 or right around $80-90 million in cap space. All this stuff. Are you bringing back Todd Bowles next year, or do you want to bring in a young guy or even a Kirk Cousins, make him learn under the staff with Todd Bowles, Morton, whoever it may be, and then maybe fire them in a year or two anyway and have to make all these young guys learn another system? Or are you just going to cancel everybody out this year, fire everybody, and bring in a whole new staff?
Well, I think that there's logical arguments for both. Todd Bowles, in my opinion, as much as I've railed on him, I know you guys have railed on him. Every podcast, every New York Jets podcast has railed on Todd Bowles to no end. But I do have to say one thing. He hasn't made as many mistakes this year as he did last year. Has he completely cleaned everything up? The answer to that question is no. So by that benefit, he should be gone. But the problem is that the Jets have hit the reset button on changing coaching regimes and offensive schemes and defensive schemes so much that hitting the reset button again and getting rid of Todd Bowles and John Morton and bringing in a bunch of young guys and having them learn yet another offensive system, it could be detrimental to this team's development. And believe it or not, if you take a look at every single game this year, save the Denver game where you still had guys trying and some guys you could tell were just getting frustrated and they quit on everything. These guys have played their asses off for Todd Bowles, so they're buying into the message that he's preaching. Now, in my opinion, I think that you bring Todd Bowles back, you bring John Morton back, because John Morton's offensive system has shown flashes that if he takes the training wheels off of the quarterback and the running backs and the wide receivers, this offense could put up points. This offense could put up points in bunches. But the one thing that has to be fixed, again, I hate to bring this up again, is the offensive line. But even with a subpar offensive line, this Jets team could still put up, can still average 17 to 20 points a game.
Oh, easily, CJ. And just to comment on that really quick before we let you go, and I want you to promote yourself. The fact that the team, and say what you want about Anderson and Kurtz, but with the lack of weapons that they have, And with this offensive line and with a 38-year-old journeyman quarterback to put up like 31 points against a team like the Panthers is impressive. If he gets a couple guards, a tackle, maybe another receiver, whatever it may be, a quarterback, this team could easily put up more points. I'm not one of those guys who's killing John Morton. I think John Morton has done a fine job this year in terms of the coaches. I have more of a question about Bowles, but we have to get into some other things before we close out. Promote your show, the Jets Factor podcast. We're both affiliated with the Grandstand Sports Network. So talk about that a little bit if you want, but just promote yourself. You guys, well, you do a great job over there. You're a very passionate and energetic guy. It's fun listening to you. So definitely tell our listeners about that.
Absolutely. I'm the host of a podcast called the Jets Factor Podcast. You can find us on SoundCloud.com. Like you guys, by the way, welcome and congratulations. It's about friggin' time that you guys joined the Grandstand Sports Network. I want to know how much Drew had to bribe you in order to get you guys on. But I'm happy that you guys are on. Welcome to the Grandstand Sports Network. I could not be more proud to be part of the Grandstand Sports Network, as I'm sure you guys are. My podcast is also affiliated with thegruelingtruth.net. You could find us on pretty much any podcast vehicle that's out there, iTunes, although I'm trying to work with the iTunes account to try and fix a couple of things. You can catch us on Google Play. You can catch us on Stitcher, iHeartRadio. Just Google the Jets Factor podcast. You can shoot us out there. Follow the show on Twitter at CNC Jets Factor. You can follow me at JetsFan0523. Shoot the show an email, thejetsfactor@gmail.com. We love taking questions. We love comments. When we get feedback, we put it on the air.
Cool.
So, and that's what we love to do. We love to make it a fan interactive show. You guys are always welcome to come on. So if privately, if you guys have a moment, just shoot me a DM. Maybe we can schedule something where I can have the both of you on. I know, Glenn, I know your schedule is kind of sketchy being on the other side of the pond. But if we can set up, even if we have to tape something and do something, or I got to do it on a special day, just let me know. You guys are more than welcome to come on my show because I love to do a lot of cross promotion and stuff. And it's just a pleasure to be on. Thank you guys so much for having me tonight. And let's make these last 3 games of the year something for us to remember and look forward to for 2018.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, no doubt about it. CJ, I'll message you. We'll set something up soon. We appreciate you calling in, man. We definitely do.
All righty. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You too.
All righty. That's CJ. Obviously, the Jets Factor podcast. Follow him on Twitter. We'll shout him out, everything like that when the show is done. Very energetic guy. Very passionate guy, as you can tell, just talking about the team. So he definitely offer something different with his show where he's just – CJ just the kind of guy who's going to punch you in the mouth and, hold nothing back, even though we don't either. But he definitely has a good show. And we appreciate, like you said, the Grandstand Sports Network. It's kind of like – it's basically a continuous podcast of just different guys. Like we have Seahawks guys and Boston Bruins guys and fantasy football guys and basketball guys and their podcast, our podcast. It's kind of like a radio station. We're just consistently playing it. So definitely make sure you check out that network. We're affiliated with them, like he said. But Glenn, we talked about the coaching a little bit. Like I said, I wasn't as mad with the giving up before the half, but I understand. It doesn't send a good message to the team, etc. But we'll talk about some other things. I guess before we get into some of the let's see, special teams, Glenn, anything you want to talk about that? The special teams, I don't know how many times they let up a 10-plus yard punt return. 10, 11, 12, 25, whatever it was. The special team, punt unit was terrible. So anything other than that for the special teams, I don't really know.
Hey, man, let's give Eric Tomlinson a little bit of credit. He got thrown in there as a long snapper when Hennessy went down, and I thought we were going to see a few snaps get launched over Lachlan Edwards' head, but they were all catchable. 1 or 2 of them were a little bit off the mark. One was off the mark, and then Lachlan Edwards had a line drive it but yeah, for a guy that's got to be nerve-wracking, man. You don't if you're the backup long snapper, you expect to never have to get into the game as a long snapper. I'm sure when Hennessy went down, nobody in that stadium felt worse than Eric Tomlinson, knowing he was going to get thrown in there, and he did a nice job. Yeah, I agree. Now let's talk a little bit about Petty. 2 for 9, 14 yards. Like you said, I just want to show a good play of Petty and then a bad play of Petty, just kind of what you're getting with him. I don't know. Let me move this screen.
And this is a nice play, nice drop back. I'm fine with his footwork. You can see his toe right there is pointed where the ball wants to go, which is what you want to do. You always want to point your toe where you want the ball to go. You always want your hips to be pointed where you want the ball to go. You want to be nice and linear. You see the ball when he's dropping back is nice and tight to his chest. His elbows are in. You get the little L right there, which is you always want to get that L throwing motion, which he has the L. Perfect. Releases the ball, extends his arm, is going to follow through. Still hits this crosser, which is, I think, just Matt Forte out of the backfield. Hits him, even though he's getting tackled. So this is a nice play from Petty. This is the good side of Petty, Glenn. Yeah,
and that's, you see him looking. That's his third option. He looks down the left side of the field, scans over to the right, and then checks down to Forte under pressure. And I saw somebody say, he was just going out there, not making any reads, throwing the ball to random players. I didn't see that at all. I think he did, again, under the conditions, poor blocking, not a lot of reps, and, a lot of pressure. So he, again, I don't know why so many people dislike Bryce Petty. I don't know why so many people have made their mind up after. I know people that made their mind up on Bryce Petty after one game. I don't think highly enough of my own personal opinion to feel like I can rate a player after one start or one game.
Yeah.
People are aspiring to can evaluate. Looking at his picture in the yearbook, me personally, I want to see the guy on the field and see what he can do. And again, this isn't to say I think Bryce Petty is going to be anything more than a career backup, but again, until I've seen him play a little bit in some decent conditions, I'm not going to – I literally, seriously, people that felt Geno needed 35 starts before he could be judged are telling me that Bryce Petty, we've seen all we need to see in 4 starts. I don't get it.
Yeah, you're breaking up. I don't know. You're fine a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit there too, but I got it, Glenn. I think people can – whatever. But – and this is a player where we need to see him kind of, I guess, be more consistent, because the last game you saw, or the last throw you saw some, good footwork. Here it's just bad footwork. And this is where I watched this play like a million times. But you want – let me just pause. If I see if I can pause it right when he's about to throw the ball, or I can. Like I said, with the last time, you want to be linear. You want your hips to be facing where you're throwing the ball. Here, his foot is out too wide. He's not facing it. He's trying to throw to the sideline here. His foot at the end of the throw is pointed. Watch, you can see his foot. That's your plant foot. You don't want your plant foot to move. You don't want your plant foot to move. You want to follow through this foot. You want your hips to be square. You want to go through the L motion. Here, his hips his one foot is way too far out. His hips aren't facing where he wants to throw the ball. And look at his foot. His foot at the end of the throw is pointing literally towards the middle of the field, like he wants to throw to the middle of the field. The ball goes high and more towards the middle of the field because his hips. He has bad posture. His foot is pointing in the wrong direction. It's not planted. He doesn't follow through. So people say, yeah, well, it was a miscommunication. But based on his footwork, like I said, the foot is way too far out. Hips aren't aligned. Foot is pointing the wrong way. I chalk this up as just bad mechanics. And it was a miss. It was.
Yeah, that's a different play than the one I was talking about. Unless it's just the one I was talking about was to the opposite sideline, and Kearse was not breaking toward the ball. He was breaking the opposite direction. Earlier in the game. So this I agree with. This is just an ugly misfire. The incomplete pass I was talking about earlier was to the opposite side, and Kearse was going toward the ball.
Yeah. No, I wasn't saying it was necessarily that, but like I said, if you just look at the end of it, foot pointing the wrong direction, the hip is the back foot is the problem when he's about to throw the ball. Like I said, you want to be linear. So you want to see him more on this line of my Krauser here. But instead his foot is in position to throw it deep down the middle of the field when he's about to throw this ball. Then he doesn't follow through at all. You want him to step through this throw, kind of, like a basketball shot with a follow through. He doesn't step through.
And that's what I wonder if from another angle. Not that he shouldn't reset himself, but is he basically thinking when he cocks his arm, he halfway through his motion, so his body is pointing down the field, and then he goes the other direction. Maybe he sees a safety arriving late, something like that. Could be no to all of those questions, but every now and then when I see a throw like that, when you see the body mechanics pointing in a completely different direction, you'll see sometimes it's pointing at someone where he wanted to go. You see there, he looks like he's looking down the middle of the field, and then he kind of changes late. But either way, it's a bad throw, no matter how you look at it.
Either way, he has time to reset himself, too.
Yeah, that's what I said. Initially, he has time to reset himself, and he doesn't.
All he has to do is drag that front plant foot, little hop and square off. Like I said, his hips and his foot are pointed like he wants to throw to the middle of the field, even his back foot. So this was just a bad mechanics there. Maybe the shoulder's a little bit high. Not really. But okay. So just want to show some inconsistency there. Hopefully he fixed that stuff. And a lot of people say, oh, well, it's easy to fix footwork and mechanics. But a lot of smart people say, which I agree with, is that, it's easy to fix this stuff in practice. But Glenn, when shit hits the fan and somebody, there's a rusher breathing down your neck, you're going to go back to what you know. And we'll see if you can fix it. Now to get into some other, the topics I call other. McCown broke his hand, obviously. 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions this year. Probably had another, 2-3 rushing touchdowns. So overall, a really good year for McCown, a lot more than we expected.
Yeah.
I think at this time in the year, it's time to play the young guys. Let's play Jeremy Clark. Let's play Derrick Jones. Let's play Justin Burris. Let's see Elijah McGuire a little bit more. Let's see Chad Hansen. Let's see ArDarius Stewart. So I think it's time to play the young guys. Do you agree with that? All the young, not okay. Well, obviously not like let's see, Dakota Dozier at guard. I still want them to be able to play those guys. I'm talking about the corners. Or Jeremy Clark's the guy who you think in a couple of years are going to be the guys to step into these starter roles or even these key role player type roles.
Yeah, I do. I did a small piece earlier, named 5 or 6 guys that I'd like to see them play. One guy that interests me, though, Joe, and I don't know, part of it's because I always like these stories, but just from a skill standpoint, when you talk about a Derrick Jones, you talk about the good height, the 41-inch vertical, those freakish athletic traits. But I'm always interested in backstories, and I look at a guy like Obum Gwacham. Obum Gwacham has been on the roster.
Right? 57?
Yeah, outside linebacker. He's been on the roster most of this season and didn't play a single snap on defense till this week. And he played a whopping 3 snaps this week. He's normally inactive. Anytime you see a developmental guy that you keep on a roster all year, even though you're not playing them, 99% of the time, and they have interesting traits, he's a converted wide receiver. He was a wide receiver who got moved to linebacker. So obviously he's going to have some decent explosion traits. And he played a little bit, and that's why I questioned, do we see him get extensive playing time this week? Because he was cut by the Saints. He's a former member of the Saints. He didn't have any starts with them. He picked up 2.5 sacks in 8, 9, 10 games, something like that. But anytime I see a guy who has great physical traits and sticks on a roster, despite the fact that he's clearly just being developed throughout the year because he's not being used in any games. I think he had 19 special team snaps going into this Denver game. So, just when he was signed, I don't have his numbers in front of me, but his explosion score was pretty high, which again you would expect if a guy moves from wide receiver to outside linebacker. So I'd like to see him. Of course, we'd all like to see Jeremy Clark. We talked about David Bass earlier. Get him some more run. And one thing that jumped out at me last week, of course, it didn't matter because he hurt his ankle, but Elijah McGuire was the starting running back, and I'm wondering if there was a plan to say let's get him more touches today, because for whatever reason it seems that the limited time he gets, I feel like he has the least running room. He's consistently being chased in the backfield or running into piles of bodies in the middle of the O-line. So then maybe a little Neil Sterling, and as I said, can we please throw the ball down the field to ArDarius Stewart. And I think Chad Hansen's going to get the reps. He's already getting them, and he's getting the targets. ArDarius Stewart's getting the reps. He's just not getting the targets.
Yeah. So we agree. Let's get the younger guys some more reps, and even like the guy you said, whatever, OB, whatever.
Obum Gwacham. Come on, man.
Obum Gwacham. Let's see him a little bit. Maybe he's the backup guy. Obviously, he's not going to start over Davis or not. Well, he's an outside linebacker, but he's not going to start over any of these linebackers. But let's see him in a key reserve role, maybe.
Pass rush specialist, yeah.
Like I said, let's see Derrick Jones. Let's see Jeremy Clark. Let's see Elijah McGuire. You're right. I think he got 1 rush last week for 3 yards. And it doesn't help with the offensive line. Oh, yeah, minus 3. That's what I'm saying.
One rush, first carry of the game, -3, hurt his ankle, and he was pulled.
On a pitch. I think it was a pitch or a toss or whatever it was.
A toss to the outside, I think.
Yeah, so let's see the young guys. Let's see if we have some role guys. We're not going to win any of these games, most likely. So let's see a little bit more of them. ArDarius, Stewart, like you said, we need to see something from him. Chad Hansen, et cetera, maybe Neil Sterling, whoever you want to see. Glenn, 2 more things before we get into the picks. I guess we just talk about the other stuff. The Jets activated Jeremy Clark. Let's see him. They waived cornerback Robert Nelson, whoever, they played him over Justin Burris for whatever reason. They must really not like Justin Burris at this point.
Well, I think that was because Nelson is more suited for a nickel guy, and that was when they needed a nickel. Justin Burris, I think it's time to move him over to safety. He's a backup safety. He played there a little bit in college. I think he started his college career as a safety. When the Jets drafted him initially, they were asked what the plan was, and Mike McCagan said, he does have some safety background, but we're starting him off at corner. If they dislike him this much at corner, take a look at him at safety, work him there a little bit.
The only thing I'm worried about with safety with him is how many times have we went over him taking terrible angles.
Yeah.
You're the last level of defense. So we'll see.
But it wasn't an issue, or I don't remember it being an issue last year. So
I don't either. So maybe it's a spotty thing, but yeah, we'll have to see. Obviously, if he sucks, then he might be gone. Somehow, I don't know, give Doug Middleton some juice and make him play those last couple of games, because I don't want to see Rontez Miles really ever in the game.
Middleton went on IR, didn't he?
That's what I'm saying. Give him some juice. Shoot him up. Let's see if he can play. So let's see the young guys. The Jets signed Jeremy Langford to the practice squad. He was decent in his first year with the Bears.
Yeah.
Jeremy Curley is eligible to return this week. We don't know how much he's going to play. He said that a ghost maybe put it in his whatever the PEDs. I think he's joking. Obviously, let's not get too
I hope so
crazy. Glenn, last topic for me. Jets, they're planning to play Petty. I think it's going to be simple. You're going to run the ball a lot. You're going to bring in extra tackle or extra tight ends to chip and help him in protection. Rollouts one side of the field, the reads. Easy reads like a slant flat concept or a curl flat concept, something like that. So I think they're going to make him read half the side of the field. I don't really think he's going to be reading both sides of the field, going through his progressions on multiple different concepts. But I think it's going to be easy reads, rollouts. Not making him make a lot of different tough decisions. So I think they're going to kind of play it easy with him for now. How do you see them playing Petty, I guess?
Hopefully that's what, hopefully some of what you said and what I was saying earlier, that let's play to some of his strengths and do just that, have him roll out quite a bit, because, you're going to want him to be a moving target behind this offensive line, the way they're playing right now. And, there's not going to be any establishing the run to try to take the heat off. I think they'll try to early on. And once we see them average 2 yards a carry again, they're going to – I wouldn't be shocked any more games. Foles doesn't have any faith in Petty. They just run it 35, 40 times and take the loss and just avoid embarrassing quarterback play.
Yeah. All right, Glenn, any topics you want to bring up? You talked about the Jamal Adams thing. I thought it was interesting that he said that about some teams' practice habits. Obviously, that's a little bit concerning. Probably guys like Mo Wilkerson, some guys who don't want to be here. Maybe a guy like Winters or Carpenter who just fell off the face of the earth. Maybe it's those guys. So that's a little bit concerning. The Jets team needs to get a fire lit under their ass when they play on the road, because they don't look like the same team to me. Any other topics you want to throw in before we go into the games?
No, I mean, that was, like I said earlier, I was surprised that Adams' comment didn't get any traction. He kind of questioned the practice habits of certain players, and then he backtracked a little bit, and he kind of said us, the collective we, or however he worded it. But he clearly was starting to say, when you see some guys in practice, and then he backed it up. So, of course, Mo is the first guy that comes to mind with his habit of showing up late. So, not great news there. But still, we got to talk about Joel Stave. They signed a practice squad quarterback.
The funny thing is, he's in a play before Christian Hackenberg does. So
that's where I was going with that. I was going to say, do they activate Joel Stave after like one day of practice, add him to the roster, Petty gets hurt, and they go to Stave instead of Hackenberg?
Can you imagine? That'd be absolutely ridiculous. That is going to turn out to be McCagnon's worst move. Definitely the Hackenberg pick, the Wilkerson contract. Looking back on it, even though a lot of people wanted to sign it at the time, The Revis contract, maybe the Buster Screen contract wasn't a good one. They're still paying him now. They paid Revis $6 million this year. He's not on the team. So, Revis, Screen, Hackenberg, Wilkerson, some bad decisions, but just as many good ones, I think, in my opinion, at least. Glenn, moving on to the picks so we can get out of here. We do this show from 6 to 8, so I never eat dinner before, so I'm freaking starving right now. I'm going to order some food as soon as we hang up. Last week we were talking about, okay, well, let's get to double our wins than our losses. We both shit the bed. It happens. This is the first time I think we went 2-3. We both went 2-3. We both picked the same games, bringing our overall records to 41 and 24. We got to have like a 5-0 week this week and like a 4-1. We need to get double the wins than the losses.
Oof.
So So let's see. Last week we both picked the Broncos versus the Jets, or we picked the Jets versus the Broncos. Jets got shut out.
Big mistake.
We both picked the Falcons, who lost to the Saints 20-17. We both picked the Vikings, who got beat in Carolina 31-24 to the Panthers. We both picked the Jaguars, who beat the Seahawks 30-24, and we both picked the Vikings, who beat the Rams 43-35. I feel terrible for Eagles fans, even though I think people from Philadelphia are kind of, douchey anyway in their fan bases.
I think they should sign Romo.
Yeah, well, honestly, I feel bad.
Imagine if the Eagles won a Super Bowl with Romo.
Let me rephrase that. I feel bad for Carson Wentz. I do not feel bad for Eagles fans because fans from Philadelphia are the only fans I've ever heard cheer injuries. When I think David Wright got hurt, they were cheering. When a Devils player got hurt in Philadelphia, they were cheering. I've seen them throw cups of ice or cups of beer or whatever at Ben Roethlisberger when he was getting carted off the field, like just assholes. So I don't feel bad for Philly fans. I retract that statement. I feel bad for Carson Wentz and the Eagles team. But we both picked them. They won 43-35, like I said. This week, Glenn, got some good games. Jets versus the Saints. 5-8 Jets at the 9-4 Saints. Quick, I guess, synopsis. A couple sentences. Like I said, score prediction, the usual.
It's going to be ugly. I'm going to say 45-13 New Orleans.
45-13. Okay. I'm going to say 34-13. Jets play a little bit better. Maybe I just don't. I don't know how they're going to contain that running game where you have the guy who punches you in the mouth in Ingram, and then the elusive guy who gets the big time gains when you're tired out in Kamara. Then you have obviously a Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees throwing to a very good receiver. And Michael Thomas. Then also you have a deep threat guy in Ted Ginn, who's actually been playing better this year. He doesn't have as many drops. You have a solid defense. They have a solid offensive line. I don't think the Jets have any chance in this game. I think this would probably be the worst game of the year. But then again, we just got shut out by the Broncos, who lost 8 games in a row, 23-0. So I shouldn't say that. But yeah, I'm picking the Saints. Like I said, 34-13. Glenn saying 45-13. Man. The Jets right now are 16-point underdogs. I think that's going to change a little bit when you get to the game, but 2 touchdown underdogs, I think it's going to happen. Glenn, the next game, let me just put that down. I didn't really have to type in that we both think the Jets are going to lose to the Saints. Next game here, let's do the Saturday night game. Is there any reason they're playing on Saturday night this week? Do you have any idea why?
I think they do that late in the year, don't they? I think they is there a Thursday game? I think they move the Thursday game to Saturdays late in the season.
No, the Broncos and the Colts are playing tomorrow night.
That's a big game for draft position.
Yeah, we're rooting for the Colts, I think. I don't know. We're rooting for any team who's at 4 or 3 wins right now, just root for them. And if a team is at 3 wins and one's at 4 wins and they're playing each other, root for the team with 4 wins because you have a better chance of them winning another game than the team who has 3 wins.
We need to root for the Niners to not win anymore and get back in that 2 spot because they might be willing to try.
Yeah. Okay, go on. So like I said, Saturday night game, 8:30. The 7-3 Chiefs versus the 7-6 Chargers.
Give me the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chargers too, even though they're on the road. But that's for the AFC West lead. So whoever wins that game is most likely going to win that division and get into the playoffs. I'm going to take the Chargers too. They're just so hot over the last couple of weeks. I think like 5-game win streak or whatever they're on. They've been really, really good. And Phillip Rivers, I think, is an underrated quarterback in general now and throughout his career. So I'm taking them as well. Next game Sunday at 1:00. I don't know if I screwed up on this one. No, I'm good. Okay. The 7-6 Packers at the 9-4 Panthers. Remember, Aaron Rodgers is coming back, and the Packers right now are fighting for a wild card spot. The Panthers are the fifth seed in the wild card. I think the Packers are like the 8th or something like that, but they need to win the rest of their 3 games to get into the playoffs. So this is a big game for both teams.
It is, and it's in Carolina.
In Carolina.
Give me Carolina.
That's a mistake, my friend. Aaron Rodgers come back all pissed. They need a win to get into the playoffs. I'm taking the Packers.
I was gonna say that, but I can see him taking a couple of big hits, and
yeah.
You know what though? They people don't realize that Aaron Rodgers, like 90% of his passes travel like 3 yards. They dink and dunk you the whole time, and then they air it out once or twice and get behind you. So he doesn't get hit that much, but
no, you're taking the Panthers. You can't change it now, Glenn. I'm sorry. I veto your change. I saw you thinking about it.
I didn't say it was my final answer.
Seriously, do you want to change it or no?
No, I'll stick with Carolina.
You sure? All right. Because then if we go back to this game next week, the Packers win. I can't get any shit for not letting you change it. Next game, this is another good game. Sunday at 4:00, the 8-5 Seahawks at home versus the 9-4 Rams. The Seahawks are in the 7th position outside looking in for the playoffs.
We need the Rams, man. I'm picking the Rams because we need – no, I'm picking the Seahawks because we need the Rams. I'm picking the Seahawks to win that game. I'm putting the jinx on them, even though jinxes aren't real. And, yeah, we need the Rams to win that game, keep Seattle out of the playoffs, and help move that second-round pick up a few spots.
Yeah, this one's tough because this is another game too. Like if they're away from Seattle, they don't play that well. But if they're in Seattle, they play well. I still think the Rams are a young team who has a lot of room to grow into being a really good team and playing that environment with the Seahawks fans, knowing that they need to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. I think the Seahawks come out and win. I think Russell Wilson is a fantastic quarterback. So I'm gonna take the Seahawks as well. Last game, Glenn. This is for the lead in the AFC, I believe. Yeah, this is for the lead in the AFC. Sunday at 4:00, the 11-2 Steelers at home versus the 10-3 Patriots.
Give me the Pats, man. The Pats don't lose 2 in a row.
Yeah, I'm taking the Patriots too because the Patriots just have the Steelers number. Now the only reason I can think of them not winning is like classic Patriots, like losing in the regular season and dominating a team in the playoffs. But I'm taking the Patriots too. It's hard to pick against Tom Brady ever. So to recap, we're both picking the Saints. We're both picking the Chargers. I'm picking the Packers versus the Panthers, and you're picking the Panthers in that game. We're both picking the Seahawks versus the Rams, and we're both picking the Patriots versus the Patriots versus the Steelers. Sorry. Glenn, final words, thoughts, comments, concerns? You want to call anybody a douche before we hang up? What do you want to do?
No, nothing extra from me. That wraps it up from England, and time for me to do some more homework.
Yeah, check out the JetNation.com forums. Check out our affiliated website, the Grandstand Sports Network. Thank you to our sponsor, OddsSharks or OddsShark.com. Check them out if you're gambling this week. Pray for me for fantasy. Last comment is if you're going to have a strong opinion, make sure you actually know what you're talking about, and it is an opinion with substance. Please, I would appreciate that. We'll be back next Wednesday at 6 if people are going to still listen because I was quite a douche tonight. But it is what it is. Leave us a podcast review. We got this one this week. Every review helps. I'm not even kidding. So please do that. Take 5 minutes. Give us a 5-star rating. Tell us why you like the show. Don't tell us why you don't like the show. But like I said, we'll see you next week. Thank you.